I am a living skeleton. Right now I was lying on the ground dying. I tried crawling toward my master to save the succubus mistress who was currently being attacked by a knight. But my struggles were in vain. The succubus madam's heart was pierced by a knight using her sword. The powerless me was unable to protect the succubus mistress. In my heart, I asked them to stop. I begged them not to kill the succubus mistress. As I was crawling, a shield crushed my collarbone. The skull of my head that was blown off by it rolled into the face of the succubus mistress. The succubus mistress who had died was now drenching the ground with her blood. I saw the succubus madam's face filled with agony. The succubus madam had tears streaming down her face. Seeing those tears, I felt very sad. Madam, I apologize for not being able to protect you. I remembered the succubus mistress who treated me kindly and affectionately. However, now he is dead. If only I had been a little stronger. The knights who thought that their task had been successful finally chatted. Seeing the knight who was laughing with his comrades, I rolled my head toward his feet. I then bit the knight's leg and tore the flesh off his leg. My skull was soaked with the knight's blood. If only I was given a second chance. The knight who was angry because he was injured cursed me. He said that I was just a skull and trampled my skull shattered. The knight kept stepping on my bones until they shattered into pieces. Amidst this incident, I thought that I wanted to get stronger. As my consciousness faded away, I heard a voice in my mind that all conditions had been met. The voice also said the level of mixing had decreased from 97.3% to 94.8%. I can't see anything. Everything feels very dark. Is this what it feels like to die? If I'm dead, that means everything is over. This is an apt ending for a pitiful skeleton warrior like me. I want to rest in peace. Suddenly, I heard a voice. I'm not sure what's making that sound. It was so loud that I couldn't rest. The sound was getting louder and louder. I wish the sound would stop. I woke up. In front of me are trees and clouds in the sky. Feeling cramped, I finally realized that I was in the grave. I'm not sure what's going on. Am I dreaming? I'm sure that this isn't a dream, so this place may be the afterlife. I was lying on the ground now, sitting on the ground. Raindrops began to fall onto the earth. I'm starting to think this place looks familiar. In front of me suddenly appeared a message window saying that the inheritance was successful. I don't understand what this message means. After reading the message, a status window popped up showing mine. In the message window, it says that I haven't been given a name yet, and I have the skeleton soldier class and various statuses of mine. Next to the class was written that I was level 1 of the 36 level stats. Seeing that I don't understand what is meant by that. I don't understand the current situation. While I was dazedly looking at my status window, a voice called out to me. The owner of the voice appeared and revealed the figure of a robed woman with a dagger at her waist. She introduced herself as Rubia and said that she had awakened me from my sleep. I wonder what else is going on now. I then realized that she was Rubia. He should have been a necromancer in training from 20 years ago, the one who made me into a skeleton soldier. The rain was now getting heavier, and the thunder started to rumble. I finally stood up after sitting on the ground for quite a while. I'm still confused about what's going on right now. I thought maybe it was 20 years ago that I first resurrected. Rubia, who saw me remaining silent, convinced herself that of course I wouldn't be able to speak. I thought that I might be dreaming. Because if not, then this girl will soon be killed by bandits. But that is nothing compared to my having to care about myself, if he died at the hands of bandits. Before I finished thinking, I was reminded of what happened with the succubus mistress. I then changed my mind. I came out of my grave and lifted Rubia on my shoulders and carried her like a thing. He was surprised to say that I was very rude. He also asked me to put him down because he is my master. Rubia struggled because she wanted to be put down. To calm the struggling Rubia, I said that I would protect her. Rubia was surprised that I could speak. Since he didn't seem to hear what I said, I once again said that I would protect him. Rubia was surprised to hear that. He asked me to put him down, but I ignored him. If I can't protect a girl like this, there's no point in me going back to life. Suddenly, a message window appeared in front of me. The message said that the S-Class scenario Ray Rubia had started. I don't understand what this message window means. In my status window, it was written that Rubia had felt attached to the skeleton she had resurrected. Rubia now called out to me and said that isn't time to put her down. But I refused his request and said that we should hide. Rubia and I then hid behind a rock. Shortly thereafter, the sound of 2 people riding horses was heard. You can see a big man carrying a big hammer as his weapon, and a man carrying a crossbow as his weapon. I had the wrong memory. These two people had not coincidentally crossed this street, but they are looking for this girl. Judging from their clothing, they weren't bandits but professional assassins. The man with the crossbow said he didn't see anyone. He then advised his friend to return. I wonder why the assassins are looking for this girl. The assassins were now finally riding their horses. Rubia was finally relieved that the assassins were gone. I then asked Rubia if she was a fugitive. Rubia, who heard my question, felt offended. He said that he was the rightful heir of a lord. Before Rubia could finish speaking, a crossbow stuck into Rubia's shoulder. I looked in the direction the crossbowman had come, and saw it was the crossbowman who had shot Rubia. Those bastards were only pretending to leave to catch us off guard. The hammer-wielding assassin now appeared from behind Rubia and laughed at what Rubia said. He said that he was an angel of death, who was invited by Lord Hyun. Hearing the assassin's words, Rubia started shaking in fear. Seeing Rubia's beautiful body, the assassin tried to rape Rubia. From behind the man, I lifted a very large rock and threw it at the man's head. Rubia looked scared. I then grabbed Rubia's hand and tried to convince her not to worry because I would protect her. Rubia also tried to grab my hand. I said that we better run fast. Before I finished speaking, a large hammer hit my skull. The hammer-wielding hitman wasn't dead yet. She, who was clutching her head in pain, asked Rubia how she knew how to use necromancy. He then wondered what kind of skeleton was this strong. I couldn't move because he had cracked my skull. I'm pissed off. I've just been given a second chance. But will it end in vain? Again, I was unable to protect anything. Seeing that I couldn't move anymore, the big hammer came back to rape Rubia. I finally woke up again. I saw the same scene when I woke up earlier. I don't understand what just happened. While I was confused, a familiar voice called out to me. I glanced in the direction of the voice and was surprised that I saw Rubia, who should have died. Rubia introduced herself as before and said that she had awakened me from my slumber. After waking up, I checked my current state. I'm fine because I've been resurrected. I'm back here in the same place with my memories intact. It's all the same, except for one thing. Memorials. A message window appears in front of me so that I can choose one of the bonuses. The options for those bonuses are plus 20 goodwill for necromancers and plus 40 blunt resistance. The me who saw the message wasn't sure if I was ready to vote for this. I thought that we should move quickly. We can't just sit back and let what happened before happen again. I called Rubia, and Rubia was surprised that I could speak. I then asked him to hide behind the big rock I pointed at. Rubia looked confused and asked why she had to hide there. I explained to Rubia that the human mercenaries would be here looking for her soon. Rubia looked disbelieving. I convinced him to trust me and asked him to hide. Rubia started to think. He then asked me how I knew they were coming. I replied that I only knew. Hearing my answer, Rubia was even more confused by the meaning of my answer. In the distance came the sound of horses. Since we were running out of time, I asked for the dagger that was on Rubia's waist and promised that I would protect her. Rubia finally gave away her dagger and started hiding. The assassins finally arrived. They dismounted and started to scatter in search of Rubia. The crossbowman wondered if Rubia had run away because he didn't find any clues. The crossbowman slowly approached me, who was lying on the ground playing dead. While he was off guard, I stood up to him and cut his throat from behind with the dagger. Finally, I did. Several message windows appeared telling me that I had leveled up. I, who had just killed one of the assassins, was caught off guard and received a hammer strike to my head from behind. The hammer-wielding assassin was confused as to why there was a skullcap in the middle of the forest. He thought that there might be a dungeon nearby. Even though the attack impact was slightly reduced, I still took too much damage. The big hammer finally decided to smash me into pieces using his hammer. That's how I died a second time and was resurrected like before. It seems I have to both men or avoid them if I want to continue. However, if I choose to avoid them, it means they will continue to chase Rubia. No matter how many times I have to repeat this, I have to kill them. For now, I'll put all the points I got from killing that crossbowman into agility. In my third life, I managed to kill the big hammer. But instead, now I get shot in the head by the crossbowman, and he kills me. In the fourth life, after gaining a lot of experience and levels, I finally became agile. The sledgehammer who saw me kill the crossbowman so easily trembled in confusion. He didn't understand how a skeleton could do that. I felt that the big hammer was off guard attacking using my dagger. The big hammer user was still able to avoid my dagger. After a few swings, I finally saw an opening and slashed at the large hammer user's neck. I finally succeeded in killing the two assassins who were targeting Rubia. After making sure the assassins weren't moving, Rubia finally came out of hiding and asked if everything was over. After confirming the assassins were dead, Rubia finally breathed a sigh of relief. After 3 deaths, I finally succeeded in protecting someone. Looking at what has happened so far, it seems that every time I die, I always return to the time when I was first summoned. I always start from level 1, but my skills and stats stay the same. And with this memorial bonus, if I experience something new before I die, I gain a new ability. One thing I'm worried about is I don't know how many times I'll be able to revive. I don't know what to do if I have the number limit to revive. Rubia called out to me who was thinking and asked if I heard what she said just now. I said that I was just deep in thought and asked him to repeat what he said earlier. Rubia was a little frustrated that I didn't listen to her. Rubia told that her father was a ruler in a region and used the name Lord Ray. Rubia's mother died when she gave birth to Rubia. Lord Ray was an honest and virtuous and noble man. However, all that changed when the crown prince ascended the throne. The new king at this time was a warmonger. He also expanded conscription and improved military training. He even gave peerage titles to people with aggressive personalities. Amidst it all were several rulers who resisted this new change, including Rubia's father. Then one day, Rubia finds her father dead. Rubia, who couldn't do anything, could only cry bitterly. That was why he was currently on the run. If my memory serves me correctly, the king is about to launch an invasion. A large-scale invasion to unite all the lands under one king. A war that continued for up to 9 years. Not long after that, there was the resurrection of 16 demons. Rubia was just a sacrificial lamb caught in the middle of this mess. It's really regrettable. I don't have the power to prevent war, but I should at least be able to keep this girl safe. After hearing Rubia's story, I tried to comfort Rubia and said that she doesn't need to worry because I will protect her from now on. Seeing me trying to comfort her, Rubia laughed a little. He thought it was funny hearing a skeleton say that. I have to get stronger so I can protect her. I will do anything so that one day I can meet my mistress. We finally decided to go to the nearest village. After quite a long walk in the cave, we finally saw a light indicating that the exit was near. Rubia was very excited and ran outside. Rubia looked even more excited to see the snow piled up outside. I don't understand why he's so excited, because even Snow said that snow is just white ice. Rubia threw a snowball at my face and said not to be so emotionless even though I'm just a skeleton. I answered that skeletons usually don't have emotions. Rubia, who heard what I said, couldn't help but look awkward and said she understood. I finally said that we should hurry. Rubia, who was climbing the mountain, asked me if the place we were going to was Ublam. I replied that he was right and said that we will reach Ublam sooner after climbing over this mountain. Rubia, who was out of breath, also said that we should buy armor for me when we get there. I don't see why we have to buy armor. Rubia explained that I couldn't wander around the city looking like this. Rubia, who was completely exhausted, asked to rest for a while. Before she could finish her sentence, Rubia slipped from her footing. Luckily, I managed to catch Rubia's hand before it was too late. After I brought Rubia to safety, she finally thanked me for saving her. Rubia smiled happily and said that I always protect her. Since we were almost there, I asked Rubia to hold on a little longer. After quite a tiring journey for Rubia, the sight of Ublam finally came into our view. Rubia, who felt that our journey was finally over, looked happy. He then said that it was his turn to protect me now. Rubia said that a living skeleton couldn't walk into the palace. He was planning to go in to find me a suit of armor so I could go inside. I asked Rubia if she would be okay. Rubia replied that she was sure she would be fine, and this was nothing compared to what I had done so far. Running excitedly inside, Rubia then asked me to wait for her as she will be back soon. Waiting for Rubia, who returns, I can only wait. Time went on. The time I waited even changed from an hour today. 3 days have passed and I'm still waiting for him because he said he'll be back soon. I was waiting when I heard a voice. Out of curiosity, I went to check what was going on. I found an old man who was grumbling because he was given a troublesome task. The old man was carrying a cart and throwing away the things he was carrying in the cart. After the old man left, I, who saw what the old man threw away, couldn't help but be speechless. Because what the old man threw away was Rubia's corpse. In the end, I failed again to protect her. I feel worthless because I can't protect anything. While I was grieving, I heard the voices of 2 men talking. One of the men was grumbling as he had just been beaten as if he were a dog. The other man said of course he would be mad because the merchandise that arrived had died before selling it. I, who listened to their conversation, did not understand at all what they meant. The beaten man asked, where they had left the body of the woman they had dumped. He felt it was a waste if they just dumped his corpse like that. To search for Rubia's corpse, the man left his friend, who returned to the inn. Finding Rubia's corpse, he smiled as he put his sword belt on the ground and intended to rape Rubia's corpse. Taking advantage of the man's guard, I took his sword and stabbed him in the back. Because he was stabbed, he screamed in pain. I then threatened him that he would die if he even moved a bit. I asked that this girl's corpse was left here. The man replied that the innkeeper had given the girl to them. I then asked the next question. Who killed this girl? He also replied that he only followed the leader of the guards and killed him. Hearing his answer, I asked him if raping a dead body was also an order from his superiors. He wasn't sure how to answer. I deepened my sword thrust and drew my sword from his chest. The man who was on the verge of death was shocked when he saw my figure. He couldn't believe that a skeleton had killed him. Seeing Rubia's corpse's eyes still open, I closed them so she could rest in peace. Remembering what the recently dead man had said, I rushed into the city. Under the light of the moon, I finally found the inn I was looking for. When the innkeeper opened the door, I kicked him in the stomach and sent him flying. Frightened, he knelt on the floor. The innkeeper misunderstood and said that he really didn't know anything. Not sure what he meant, I asked him what he meant. The innkeeper replied that he was talking about what happened to the members of the organization that went after Lord Ray's daughter, and he really didn't know. Not knowing who the innkeeper was referring to, I asked him who he was talking about. The innkeeper realized that I wasn't from the organization he was talking about. As the innkeeper was trying to raise his head, I stepped on his head and stuck my sword in front of him. The innkeeper screamed in fright. I said that he only needed to answer my question. I then said that 3 days ago, a daughter of the ruler came here, and then she was dragged away by the guards. The innkeeper asked if I was the girl's companion. I said yes, and asked why the girl died. The innkeeper tries to escape, but I stabbed his leg to prevent him from running. He also cried in pain. The innkeeper then begged to spare his life and said that he would tell me everything. He said that he only handed over a lone girl to the guards. He explained that the leader of the guards must give women to the Necrons to be used as slaves. After he said the name of the Necron Society, the snake tattoo that was on his neck became alive and strangled the innkeeper's neck. The suffocating innkeeper was struggling for help. However, all of that was just a futile struggle. He eventually died, and the snake turned back into a tattoo. Seeing what happened, it seemed that the tattoo was a curse. I thought there must be something going on between the guardians of Yublam and the Necrons. The current me is too weak to meddle with them. In the corner of the room was an armor. Looking at the armor, I thought of Rubia saying that she would buy me the armor. I then put on the armor. I have to become stronger so that no one will surpass me, so that I don't lose someone again. I'm currently exploring the dungeon of the Ghost Grave House. This dungeon is quite small, so for me alone. Soon I found a skeleton. I feel awkward to fight because we are both skeletons. I also showed my face and said that I didn't want to hurt the other skeletons. The skeleton was confused, not knowing what to do. Looking at the skeleton, I wonder if I looked like that before meeting the succubus mistress. I feel that they are pathetic for not being able to speak, not wanting to fight with fellow skeletons. I turned my back to go find another dungeon. As I was about to leave, a message window popped up in front of me saying that the boss of the dungeon had appeared. A moment later, a skeleton appeared 3 times the size of an ordinary skeleton that carried a large mace as its weapon. The skeleton I met just now was trembling in fear before the dungeon boss. The dungeon boss then raised his mace and smashed the skeleton in front of him to pieces. I don't understand why he killed his own subordinates. The dungeon boss then roared and ordered his men to attack me. I began to take a position to fight. I easily slashed the 2 skeletons that came charging at me. After taking care of the 2 skeletons, I noticed a hammer attack appear above my head. I dodged the hammer strike by jumping to the side. The dungeon boss growled as his attack missed. The dungeon boss then returned to swinging his mace. I dodged his attack again and attacked his left leg. I, who was happy to have injured the boss of the dungeon, let my guard down by celebrating too soon. I also received a mace blow to my body. I guess I was feeling too optimistic, hoping that he would calm down after breaking one of his legs. The dungeon boss swung his mace again. I dodged by, jumping up and up on his head. Since we are fellow skeletons, I know what our weaknesses are. I then stabbed the dungeon boss's skull head hard. The dungeon boss roared as his weak point was hit and died. I finally managed to level up 5 times at once because I managed to beat this dungeon boss. A moment later, a quest window popped up stating that I had to swing my sword 10,000 times. If I succeed, the quest will reward me with a swordsmanship skill. Just by swinging the sword 10,000 times will my sword skills increase. This me who doesn't need food or sleep should be able to finish this quickly. Since the owner of this dungeon is gone, I should be able to do my training here in peace. This quest is more difficult than I thought. If my sword swing isn't perfect, that move doesn't count. In the middle of my training, a message popped up saying that an intruder had arrived. In a dungeon hall, a man and 2 female adventurers were seen exploring this dungeon. The man now explained to the girls that this dungeon was filled with skeletons, and this dungeon was too dangerous for the girls right now. He then assured them that they would be fine since he was here. One of the female adventurers, who looked like a bitch, then said that she was afraid of getting hurt. The adventurous man who heard the woman's anxiety said that they only needed to get ready and watch. He then showed them a pouch full of expensive healing potions and said if they got hurt, he would give them treatment. The girl looked amazed to see the contents of the bag and praised the man. The other woman was speechless because of how easy the man was to read. He was sure that the adventurous man was quite wealthy. He was also sure that the bitch was trying to get close to the guy, knowing that already. The woman planned to cheer him up a bit for now, and when the man was too busy fighting monsters, he would kill them and take all their treasure. The adventurous man felt very lucky, due to the fact that this dungeon for beginners was only filled with weak skeletons. Even though the boss was quite half-hearted, he had come fully prepared. The man thought of showing his cool side to impress the 2 ladies. He then started drooling and imagining what they would do. Since nothing had happened after they entered for a long time, one of the thieving women asked why they had not seen any skeletons. The man also made excuses that they were still in the entrance area. He himself didn't understand why the dungeon was empty. It wasn't long before they finally found the corpse of the defeated dungeon boss. They started to think that maybe someone had already cleared this dungeon. The thief woman thought that she had no luck. He then intended to attack them since they were off guard. While they were all confused, I finally appeared before them. Noticing my presence, the male adventurer became alert. He asked who I was and whether I had defeated this dungeon boss. They weren't sure if I was a person or a monster. I replied that I had taken over this dungeon and asked them to leave. The adventurous man felt relieved to think I was a person. The man also judged from my tone that I might be someone higher than him and thought that he shouldn't fight me. Since there was nothing he could do, he invited the girls to return. Unexpectedly, that thieving woman actually tried to heat up the situation so that the male adventurer would fight me. Not wanting to look bad in front of women, the man was instigated by the thieving woman. Seeing the stupid man's behavior, the woman thief smirked behind the man because of his stupidity. The adventurous man pointed his finger at me and said that I have no manners and that I should take off my helmet before talking to them. According to his request, I took off my helmet and showed my face. Seeing my real figure, they were surprised. Asking them if they were satisfied, I asked them to leave. The bitch thought I was no ordinary skeleton and suggested they should leave. The man, however, ignored him and confidently said that I was just a skeleton that got armor from somewhere. The adventurous man also warmed up and challenged me. Despite my warning, the man still ignored my warning and tried to swing his mace to attack me. He thought that he was currently showing his cool side to the girls. However, before he could swing his mace, his arm was sliced off by my much faster sword strike. Due to his hand being cut off, the male adventurer was groaning in pain on the ground. The bitch who saw this incident was frightened and tried to run away. I don't understand why he didn't leave after I warned them. When the bitch was running away, she was stabbed by a knife thrown by the thieving woman who came with her. I, who thought that the thieving woman had missed, started preparing to fight. Seeing that I was ready to fight, the thieving woman gave herself up and begged me to spare her life. I can only be confused by what happened. The thieving woman then introduces herself as Rena, who is from the TNT Guild. The TNT Guild is a guild that commits murder, steals, and provides information. Hearing Rena's explanation, I also asked if Rena's target had been that bitch. Rena said it would be troublesome for me if that woman managed to escape. Rena asked me to think that she had saved me from imminent trouble. I didn't plan to kill him, though. I asked what the reason was for killing his comrades because he could have aimed for my back. He replied that he knew that I wasn't someone who could be defeated by such tactics. Then Rena explained that Rena brought them here with the intention of killing them from the start. I, who already understood what was going on, finally asked Rina not to disturb my practice and do whatever she wanted because I had spared their lives. Seeing that I thought that I had nothing to do with her, Rina said that she might be of use to me. I, who thought I didn't need his help, remembered that I needed information. I then asked if he also gave information. Rina looks happy that I need her, and asks if there's anything I want to know. I asked him if he knew anything about society. Rina also looks troubled because the information I requested is high-level information. He knew something about the Necron Society, but Rina asked for one condition. Rina didn't seem to understand that she should be satisfied for sparing her life. Rina said that she understood. However, it would be very difficult to tell what he knows if I'm not a member of the guild. I could buy that information directly from the guild, but it would be difficult with my facial features. Understood by Rina's intention, I finally asked her what the requirements were. Rina said that he wanted me to be his ally. When Rina asked me to become her ally, a scenario appeared before me asking me to help Rina to increase her rank in the TNT Guild. There are many things I still don't know, but one thing for sure is that I need information. Rina wasn't sure if I heard her. He then called me and asked if I was practicing. Because if I accept him as an ally, not only will he provide information, but he can also help with my training. After hearing what he wanted to say, I grabbed his neck and lifted him up. As if killing his own comrades for his own benefit wasn't enough, he did it without hesitation to his fellow humans. I don't want to be stabbed in the back of my neck. Hearing my statement, Rina then laughed. He said that he didn't like humans at all because they didn't see Rina as a human. He even said that he likes me more than the human race. Rina also asked if we had experienced the same thing. Because whenever they see me, they only see monsters whose skulls should be crushed and left to die. The Necron Society is a shadowy syndicate that has a hand in producing drugs, contract killings, human trafficking, and other things that can generate money. The community was even supported by rulers from various places as well as powerful people in the Empire, which made the scale of the Necron Society very large. Despite all that, no one knows the identity of the syndicate head or the location of his headquarters. That was all the information Rina had because the rest of the information was only stored by those at the top of the guild. That's why Rina came up with the idea that I should hunt humans the same way humans hunt monsters. Rina will bring her assassination targets to this dungeon, and I will gain quite useful experience. With this, Rina can rank up in her guild, and with that, she can give me the information I want. All of this sounded fine to me, but I asked him one more time to be sure. Will Rina not hesitate to help me kill her fellow humans? Rina, who heard my question, smiled broadly and said that she hates humans. Hearing Rina's answer, I finally agree with our agreement. Inside this labyrinth, I'm dealing with 3 intruders. I managed to defeat one of the intruders easily with my sword. An angry archer who saw me kill his comrade aimed his bow at me and tried to shoot me. But before he could shoot his bow, he was stabbed by the knife that Rina threw from behind him. Rina, who was caught off guard, was now kicked by the last intruder. He was angry because Rina had seduced them and trapped him into her trap. Due to his being distracted, I stabbed my sword from behind him. After a few months of doing this, now my level-up speed has slowed down even more. I'm starting to think that I should move to another dungeon. Rina looks happy to come to show the loot this time. This week's loot looks a lot this time around. It was all because Rina had seduced so many people. Rina then explains that even if I kill people like she promised with the contract, there will be little money in her share since they are all criminals. Rina was very annoyed that these criminals avoided being caught by the guards by bribing them. Rina thought that they all deserved to die because they had committed all kinds of crimes, such as robbing and raping. Looking at the results of the loot with some of the books we got. One of those books is called The Unsightly Magician. The book chronicles the irresponsibility of magicians, even though they enjoy immense superiority. After reading the book, a message popped up saying that my knowledge had increased. When I saw the message, I was shocked. Rina, who didn't understand what happened, asked what happened, but I ignored her. After finally reading all the books we had, only 2 books added to my knowledge. One thing that both books have in common is that this book was written by Kevin Ashton. Seeing that I was so interested in books, Rina asked if she should go to the village and see if there were any other books. Rina was always responsive as usual. I replied that it was okay. I then asked if there was another dungeon near here. Rina then explained around here there are 4 other dungeons. The dungeons were Class E Dungeon, Class D, Spider Tower Ruins, and Class C, Misty Loop, and Slum Forest Zone. When I wanted to ask for help when he returned to the village, Rina was already asleep in my lap. Dai might just be exhausted from going back and forth from the dungeon to the village and vice versa without rest. Seeing Rina, who was already asleep, I decided to level up my swordsmanship. However, when I tried to stand up somehow, I felt very tired. I decided to continue later and fell asleep. Before my consciousness faded, a message appeared in my mind that said that my affinity with the dungeon had exceeded 20% and I was starting to lose my humanity. I wonder if I just fell asleep because I shouldn't be able to sleep. Gradually, the face of the succubus mistress who should have died came into view. Seeing me awake, the succubus lady asked me if I had a good dream. I realized now that I was lying on the lap of the succubus mistress. Feeling that I had been impolite to fall asleep on his lap, I immediately tried to stand up. Seeing my reaction, the succubus mistress said that she shouldn't have woken me from my deep sleep. Realizing that my armor was missing, I panicked. The succubus lady hugged me, who was panicking to calm me down. He thought that I had been having a bad dream. He then asked what story I wanted to hear today. Hearing the succubus mistress's words, I felt sure that everything was just a bad dream. I feel so relieved that the succubus mistress and I will be living in this dungeon again for a very long time, happily. I still can't believe that it was all just a dream. Everything felt so real to be a dream. But none of that mattered because the succubus mistress was still alive and unharmed. The succubus lady, who noticed that I wasn't paying attention to the story, asked if the story was too boring for me. The succubus lady then invited me to finish talking about my dream. He asked about the girl named Rina and what kind of person she was. Rina finally woke up from her sleep. Realizing that the skeleton lord was not beside him, he decided to look for him outside. Having failed to find the skeleton master outside, Rina decided to look deeper into the dungeon. Before Rina went back in, she noticed the commotion outside. Many troops outside were trying to investigate this dungeon because many adventurers and civilians had disappeared around here. Realizing that this was a bad thing, Rina rushed to find the skeleton lord. After hearing my story, the succubus mistress said that Rina was a lively child because she asked to be my ally in a life-threatening situation. The succubus lady then asked if I would let Rina die too, just like I left the succubus lady to die. I don't understand at all what the succubus madam is saying. While I was at a loss, a message window popped up saying that an intruder had appeared. Given what happened to the previous succubus mistress, I swear they won't do that again. This time, I will definitely protect him. Rina finally found the skeleton lord. He said that this was not the time to relax, and it was time to get ready to leave because there were troops outside. Rina saw that the condition of the skeleton lord was a little strange. Suddenly, the lord of the skeletons attacks Rina. Rina is now sure that something is wrong at this time because she is acting as if she is being possessed. The troops had finally arrived. Those who found Rina and a skeleton wearing armor were now sure that they were the targets they were looking for. They started shooting arrows at them. Rina asked the skeleton master to wake up immediately because things were getting dangerous. Lady Succubus asked me what I was doing. I replied that a group of soldiers would be attacking this dungeon soon, and I would take care not to be harmed by those bastards. Rubia appeared before me and asked why I let her die. Seeing Rubia, I fell to my knees. I don't understand what's going on. Rubia says I have promised to protect her, but he still died. The succubus lady then asked me from behind why I couldn't protect them. He answered all that because I was weak. They began to take out all their sadness and anger on me. They said that everything was my fault, and they had been wrong to trust a skeleton warrior. It's all because I'm too weak. I can't protect anything. I feel like I'm drowning because of my powerlessness. Because of that, I want to become stronger. Outside the dungeon, one soldier was seen reporting that they had found their target to a knight. Just by the knight's appearance, it was clear that he was not an ordinary knight. Reyna, who was currently taking cover behind the bar, was being shot at by soldiers using crossbows. He didn't know what to do because the skeleton lord was still unconscious. Running out of options, Reyna tied up the skeleton lord and pulled him. Before running away, Reyna threw a bomb at the troops. The bomb exploded between the soldiers. Reyna planned to attract the attention of the soldiers to go deeper into the dungeon before using a smoke bomb to escape. Unfortunately, some soldiers managed to catch Reyna. The soldier said that everything is over, and justice will stop Reyna's crimes. Seeing the skeleton soldier who was with Reyna, the soldier thought that the rumor that Reyna could use necromancy was true. The soldier then ordered his subordinates to get rid of the skeleton soldier first. Because she didn't want the skeleton lord to get hurt, Reyna tried to protect the skeleton lord. My consciousness started to blur. I feel like I'm drowning in the middle of a deep sea. I'm not sure who I am and where I am. I wonder if I'm dead. I started to think that maybe this was the afterlife because I got to meet Rubia and the succubus mistress. Still, I felt very relieved to be able to see them one last time before I died. Dead? I then realized that I would revive if I died. I'm sure this is all just an illusion. I have to get up. I have to become stronger to protect my mistress, whom I met 20 years ago. Even if I'm crushed and trampled on, I'm a skeleton warrior that will protect its mistress. I swear to protect all. When I woke up from the illusion, I saw Reina, who was covered in blood. I then caught Reina, who fell down due to injury. I don't understand what's going on. It seems that Reina just protected me. The leader of the soldiers scolded his subordinates who shot Reina because they had to catch him alive. Reina, who was injured, tried to call the leader of the soldiers. The leader of the soldiers thought that Reina had given up, but his prediction was wrong. Reina asked if they smelled something. The warrior leader wasn't sure what he meant at first. When he realized Reina's goal, it was too late. At a location not far from them, several bombs exploded which released toxic fumes. This toxic smoke made it difficult for them to see and breathe. Managed to make a mess. Reina now asks me to carry her away because all this time she has been dragging me all this time. Realizing that I was trying to escape with Reina, the leader of the soldiers ordered his men to stop me, but I easily beat them. After a while, we finally ran away from them. I don't understand why Reina isn't just born. If there were many such troops, he should have fled immediately. Reina, who heard what I said that she was her ally. I wish I wasn't trapped in that obscure illusion. We finally came out of the dungeon. I feel relieved not to see any other troops around here. I then laid down Reina and tried to provide emergency aid. But while I was trying to treat Reina, I received a knight's attack from behind me. The knight who attacked me then called out to an informant who was nearby and asked why he was wasting his time catching someone as weak as Reina. The informant said that he was sure that Reina was really a strong necromancer. The informant then sensed an extremely threatening aura from the knight. Frightened, the informant drew a knife and said that he would pay for his sin with his life. The knight stopped the informer and said that His Highness would care if an informant had been killed due to a false report. When the knight was about to leave, I stood before Reina to protect her. Who's he? I didn't even see him approach me or swing his sword. This knight was completely different. He was on a completely different level from the opponents I had faced so far. I'm not sure I can beat him. Reina, who was behind me, started wincing in pain. I have to finish this fight soon. Winning or losing is a matter of later. I have to make an effort. I dashed towards the knight and tried to slash him with my sword, but he easily dodged my attack. The informant who saw me attacking the knight said, "How dare I attack that person?" Seeing the soldiers starting to come out of the dungeon, the informant asked what they were doing and told them to help immediately. A moment later, this place shook. I don't understand what's going on. In front of me appeared a message saying an advanced skill had been used. Because my level was lower than the skill's user, my movement was limited. As a result of that skill, I wasn't even able to stand up. Seeing me refusing to lose consciousness, the knight thought I was interesting, because Reina, who she thought was the witch who summoned me, has lost consciousness, but I can still move. He thought that Reina didn't look like one of the top-tier necromancers. If Reina really was a high-level necromancer, he thought that killing her now would be safer. The knight drew his sword before Reina. I can't let that knight kill Reina. I tried to force my body to move. With my body feeling very heavy, I jumped towards the knight and swung my sword. But all that is still in vain. He easily destroyed my sword with his sword slash. The knight who saw me still struggling said that it seems the report he received wasn't completely wrong. He raised his sword before me, slashing my body. There's no doubt that I'm dead. Reina might as well be dead. Even though I wanted to protect her, I went back to the beginning. If there was one good thing that happened, it was that I was able to return to the cemetery on a cloudy day, the place where Rubia was. When I woke up, the scene I expected to appear was nowhere to be seen. I didn't see Rabuya anywhere, nor the grave where I used to rise. Hearing a snoring sound in my lap, I finally realized that I had returned to the time before my illusion. I'm back to life again. However, I didn't find the rain and roar together with a weak necromancer. I started to wonder if I'd ever be able to see Rubia again. Just as I was feeling down about not being able to see Rubia again, a message window popped up. The message said that I had died 5 times, and I had reached my liking limit with necromancers in my previous life. As a reward, my title to necromancer changed to necromancer's lover. This skill looks useless for fighting, Does this mean the system has recognized Reina as a necromancer? If I think back, this girl said that she would protect me. I must return the favor. First of all, we have to get out of here first. I then woke up Reina and said to get ready to leave. I told him to leave anything that could become a burden and only take useful items with him. Reina, who rubbed her eyes because she was still sleepy, said that it was still dark outside. After finishing preparing, we finally started running to get out of this dungeon. If the message I saw before I lost my mind is true, I need to get out of here before that affinity rises any further. Because if not, the subjugation soldiers will arrive in the morning, and I won't be able to do anything and put Reina in danger. Reina now asks where we are going. I replied that we will go to the dungeon. Hearing my answer, Reina also suggested us to go to Spider Cave Ruins because she heard that Middlegrave's dungeon is completely barren right now. Reina then said that the monsters in the dungeon disappeared like vapors because there wasn't even an ant in sight. However, there is a possibility that there won't be anything to gain if we go there since the subjugation force is just there. Interested in the trooper Reina mentioned, I asked her if she knew about the knight in blue armor who had a lion carved on it. Reina asked what I meant was the Blue Lion Knight Templar. He explained that they were one of the knights who directly served the Empire. Out of curiosity, I asked how strong they were. Reina had never seen them herself, but it was said that they were ranked first or second among knights. The leader of the Blue Lion Templars was one of the swordsmen whose power was unmatched in the entire Empire. One of them is known to always carry a white sword named Seraphim. The knight was a marquis named Vatien Ponreandro. Hearing Reina's explanation, I was sure that the person called Reina was the one who beat me. I didn't expect that he was one of the top 4 swordsmen in the Empire. What's someone like him doing here? While I was thinking, Reina said that we should stop at a nearby town if I want to go to the Lava Cave Ruins. Reina thought that we need preparations like an antidote or fire bombs for spider webs. And most importantly, Reina said that she wanted to take a bath. I thought too much about myself, that's why I agreed with Reina's suggestion. The city that Reina was headed for finally started appearing in our sights. The city we are heading to turns out to be Ublam. Seeing this town reminds me of Rubia. Reina said that this city was probably the biggest city in this region and had a large shop. Seeing me pensive, Reina asked if I might be uncomfortable being in a crowd of people, and asked if she should go alone. I don't want something like before to happen. I can't send Reina to go there alone. That's why I said that I will also go. Hearing my answer, Reina also put a cloak into my armor. I'm confused about what Reina is doing since I don't need something like a cape. When we tried to enter the city, a gatekeeper asked us to pay to enter. Reina took money from her pocket and paid the gatekeeper. After receiving the money from Reina, the old gatekeeper steals his glance at Reina's chest and we both look like tourists. Reina then hugged my arm and said she came here with her husband. The old gatekeeper looked irritated and said that we could enter. I asked her who she meant by her husband. Reina replied, "Who cares, because there is nothing embarrassing about this." Reina then realized something. I asked if something was wrong. Reina replied that she smelled opium on this street, and the smell was very strong. The opium smell was very strong even though there were no opium warehouses around, and we were even in the middle of the city. Hearing Reina's words, I felt suspicious. The townspeople for some reason seem unfriendly to foreigners. The atmosphere here feels a little strange. Reina suggested that we should find an inn first and leave immediately. We finally arrived at the inn I've been to. A woman who appears to own the inn greeted us and asked what we needed. Reina replied that we needed a room and asked to bring food to our room. The new female innkeeper doesn't seem to have the snake tattoo on her neck like the previous owner. As I was looking at the woman, she noticed that I was watching her and said that it looked like I wanted something other than food and lodging. Hearing that, Reina looked at me and looked angry. I don't understand at all what happened. Morning has arrived. We are currently walking downtown aiming to go to the general store. Reina, who was walking cheerfully, said that she felt as if all her tiredness disappeared after sleeping and showering all the time. Seeing Reina, who was cheerful, I said that I'm glad to hear that. I stayed up all night, but no one tried to sneak into our room. I wonder who would go through such troublesome steps just to get a lone girl. I felt a glance from behind, but saw whoever was behind. Reina asked what was wrong. I replied that it was okay, and advised me to leave immediately. We finally arrived at the general store to buy our necessities, but apparently this store doesn't have what we need. The shop owner said that they had run out of firebombs and antidotes. Reina was disappointed because the firebombs and antidotes had run out. Reina asked to buy 10 medium-sized bottles and a barrel filled with tar. The shop owner said they had run out of it too. Reina, who was getting annoyed, asked what they had. The owner of this shop seems to look down on us because we are not from here. The shopkeeper then told us to get out and said we weren't welcome here, and he didn't have anything to sell us. Rina is getting annoyed because of the shop owner's treatment. Seeing this situation is not going anywhere, I suggest Rina that we should go. I pulled Rina's hand to leave the shop, and Rina started complaining because of the shop's treatment earlier. As we were leaving the store, we noticed someone following us. Realizing we were being followed, we tried to lure the people following us into an alley. The person was finally hooked. Catching the stalker off guard, we managed to catch the stalker who was following us and put a sword at his neck. Seeing the stalker's face, I remembered that he was a blacksmith we saw when we entered the city. I asked the blacksmith man why he was following us. The blacksmith man then asked us to follow him as it would be dangerous for us if we spent more time here. We finally arrived at his blacksmith shop. I also asked why he followed us and brought us here. Before answering my question, the man poured a glass of drink and drank it. He then asked that we were going to the Spider Cave ruins. Rina was surprised how she could know. The man said that firebombs and antidotes were items needed to explore the ruins. The man also explained that we won't be able to get those items here even if the general store sells them. Hearing the man's explanation, I was confused why they wouldn't sell those things. The man replies the reason they will not sell it is because the ruler of Yublam and his guards are keeping the spiders. Rina was surprised to hear the story of the blacksmith man. Even the blacksmith man didn't know why they kept that monster. The blacksmith man then told me that this city was almost dead. After the previous city lord died in an accident under very suspicious circumstances, the new lord replaced the city guards with rascals no better than animals. Since then, opium began to spread around the townspeople, and everyone became addicted. People started selling their land and houses at exorbitant prices to buy more opium, and even the lords of these lands were happy to take it from their hands. Anyone who disobeyed or questioned the ruler, they would all be dragged into the spider ruins, including his beloved wife. Hearing the story from the blacksmith man, I asked him why he told us. The man says he wants me to avenge his deatum. I don't understand why I have to do it. The man then says, "Didn't I come here to do that?" He pointed at my armor and said he made this armor. I was surprised to hear that. The man remembered that a young lady bought this armor for someone who loved her. Hearing that, I clenched my fists in anger. The man said that tourists who come to visit this city alone have become targets. Out of anger, I grabbed his collar and asked him why he didn't do anything, even though he already knew. The blacksmith man said he was a coward. He had lived his life like this all along. An old man seemed unable to do anything to save her. He himself knew that it was very sad. After the atmosphere had calmed down a bit, the blacksmith man said that by now the leader of the guards and his men should be taking the fodder to the spiders. He then gave something to burn up the bastards and all the spiders. Rina, who saw the object given by the blacksmith man, was surprised. Because the object he gave was the Grasmere fire, which was obtained in the sea and will never be extinguished. This Grasmere fire is said to be that this bottle of fire bottle is not available even in the blacksmith town of Grasmere. Grasmere was this blacksmith man's hometown, and had only managed to make the fire once in his life. He explained that once the fire was lit, it would never go out. If this fire bottle wasn't strengthened with cooling magic, then the flames would continue to burn for decades. He then gave her a flamethrower and a bag of objects. He said to use this pouch before using the Grasmere fire so I don't feel the heat from the fire. Originally, he was saving the fire to create masterpieces, but he felt that it was all right. As long as I can finish off those evil bastards. On the way to the Spider Cave ruins, we saw people who were caught by the guards being taken away to be eaten by the spiders. Not wanting to be found by them, we are currently hiding from them. We finally arrived at the Spider Cave ruins. This dungeon is bigger than the dungeon I stayed in before. I told Rina to bring her flamethrower. Since this thing looks dangerous, I told him to use it only in emergencies. After getting ready, we entered this dungeon. After taking a look at the contents of this dungeon, Rina said that this was her first time here, and rather than inside the ruins, she felt like she was in a cage. Rina tries to start a conversation, but I ignore her because I'm thinking. I don't understand why it's so quiet in here. Many people came here before us. The trails divide into many directions, and the condition of the ground makes it difficult to find their way. This made me not sure where we should stop on our way first. Seeing me, who was deep in thought, Rina said that she wanted to ask something. He asked how much Rubia meant to me. I replied that Rubia didn't mean much to me. Rena wasn't sure about my answer because the blacksmith man said that Rubia bought the armor for someone she loves. I also explained that this is an item that I need for our common good. Even so, in the end, I couldn't keep my promise to protect her. Hearing my answer, Rena just silent. The path we followed ended in a dead end. Since this road would lead us nowhere, I decided to turn back. Before we started walking back, Rena called me and gave me a necklace. I didn't understand and asked why she gave it to me. Rena said that she didn't give it to me and only lent it to me because it was something precious to her. I don't understand Rena. If this necklace was something of value, he should have taken care of it himself. Before I finished my sentence, I felt something dripping from my helmet. I wondered what sticky water dripped off my helmet. Out of curiosity, I looked up and realized that what was dripping was saliva belonging to a spider hanging above. Realizing the existence of the spider, Rena took out her dagger and got ready to fight. However, suddenly Rena's legs bound by cobwebs were pulled up. Seeing that Rena was interested, I tried to reach her, but a spider attacked me using its legs. I dodged and slashed one of the spider's legs. While I was facing the spider, another spider attacked me from behind and knocked me off its feet. The spider Lala pinned me down using its body. When I was trying to escape from the spider's clutches, Rena screamed because she was hanging on while being attacked by a large number of small spiders. Rena panicked and asked for help from me. In order to escape from the spider that was pressing down on me, I grabbed my sword that was falling around and stabbed its head. I finally managed to escape the spider. However, seeing the number of spider eyes watching from the shadows, I realized that we were in deep trouble. I managed to kill one of the spiders surrounding me, but there were just too many of them. One of the spiders swung its leg to attack me. I dodged and slashed his leg. While I was busy fighting one of the spiders, another spider tied my feet using its web. I thought that this was nothing and tried to cut through the net that bound my feet. However, my sword pulled and seized using their nets. They then tied my hands and feet using their net. I'm really in big trouble. I can't accept it ended like this. Seeing that I couldn't move, one of the huge spiders swung its leg to attack me. I thought that maybe this was the end. However, suddenly the spider was sprayed by fire. It turns out that Rena had escaped using a flamethrower given to her by the blacksmith. It then shoots fire at the other spiders. I asked Rena if she was okay. He said that he barely made it out alive, because Rena was caught off guard because she was talking to me. I alerted the spider Rena that was above her. Rena turned around and spit fire at the spider. Rena was amazed by the weapon she was using. So that's the reason why we carry the fire in the bottle. Because they were afraid of the weapons that Rena had, they started to run away. Seeing where they fled, we believed that it must be the way to go further inside. After I freed myself from the net that bound me, we finished off the spiders that were trying to escape. After that battle, I managed to raise my level several times. Combat experience really results in a much faster leveling rate. Rena then asked how she looked today. For saving me, I thank him. When I wanted to invite her to go deeper, Rena suddenly collapsed. Rena's condition looks very bad, as if she is having a high fever. Rena turns out to have been bitten by a spider on her neck. I have to find an antidote for him soon. Just as I was at a loss for what to do, in the distance came a roar. I went to see what was going on, and saw the humans guiding the Spider Queen with torches. The Spider Queen seems to be the boss of this dungeon. These bastards should have brought an antidote. Besides, I didn't expect that humans actually raise monsters. I don't understand what they were thinking. Due to the Queen Spider being more active than usual, the captain of the group approached the Queen Spider. The captain has a snake tattoo on his neck. That means he has a connection with the Necron Society. He told the Queen Spider to watch her behavior because they have been feeding the Queen Spider to eat every day. He then threatened the Queen Spider if she didn't keep up with her behavior, they would burn the Queen Spider's eggs until they were crunchy. So that bastard is the captain, the person who the innkeeper and the person I interrogated before were referring to. Seeing her face, I clenched my fists in anger. A novice city guard asked his senior why they dragged the prisoners all the way here when they could have killed them in the city. His senior, who heard the question, told the newbie to be quiet, and he just had to follow the leader's orders. Seeing that the rookie was slightly separated from the group, I pulled him and made him hostage. The rookie, who was trembling with fear, screamed and asked the captain to help him. The captain of the guard who saw this asked who I was and what I wanted. I gave him two options. I asked him to give me an antidote, because if he does it without any trouble, I will make him not suffer when I kill the captain and spare his subordinates. Hearing my request, the guard captain burst out laughing. He said he had seen a strange drug addict, but this was the first time he had seen a drug addict this crazy. He then, did I know who he was. I told him that a girl entered Ublam to buy an armor and came out a corpse. I'm wearing that armor right now. Realizing that I had come for revenge, he asked me if I was stupid. He said, how could he remember all the bitches who had been his victim? Hearing his words, I lunged at him to rip his head off. As I lunged at him, the captain of the guard threw a bottle and smashed it against my helmet. My helmet is now soaked with the contents of the bottle. He then asked me if I liked eggs, because he had just given me the yolks. The spider queen they drove attacked me from behind. I tried to block her attack with my sword, but failed, and the spider queen stabbed me in the chest with her leg. The captain of the guard explained that my body now secretes new from the spider's egg. In other words, I was an intruder who had stolen the queen spider's egg. Isn't it strange people say that this spider queen is a chimera that was abandoned by the witches who created it? A mother's bond is an amazing thing. Thinking that I had died at the hands of the queen spider, the head guard turned his back to leave as he thought the queen spider had already gotten her food for the day. Suddenly, there was an explosion behind the head of the guard who was trying to leave. The spider queen was now howling in pain as it was enveloped in flames. The head guard was surprised to see me standing in the middle of the burning coals. What shocked him even more was discovering that I wasn't even a human. I told you that I would make her death painful. Using the flamethrower the blacksmith man gave me, I incinerated everyone present. The guards that were here as well as the spiders that were trying to protect their queen, I burned them all indiscriminately. The guards who were enveloped by the flames could only scream in agony for help. The head guard who was in the middle of the fire begged me for mercy and said that he would do anything. Mercilessly, I told him to die and breathed more fire into his body. I will kill all the bastards who raped and killed Rubia, crisp so that no one will recognize them. None of them will I spare. In the midst of all that, began to feel strange. My whole body melted. It seems that the powder that the blacksmith man gave me was not enough to protect me. My head dropped because my neck bones were melting. My consciousness was slowly fading. Amidst my fading consciousness, a text appeared which said that the assimilation rate had decreased from 92.49% to 90.14%. I finally regained my senses. I died even though I used flame retardant spray on me. I didn't even feel the heat. Sensing me who woke up earlier, Rena asked what happened. I replied that we should immediately go to Ublam. I did everything that happened like in my previous life. Just like what happened before, Rena was currently berating the general store owner who refused to sell anything. Then after leaving the shop, I caught the town blacksmith and asked him to go to his shop to talk because it's not safe here. He explained again what he had explained in his previous life. When he gave me the flame retardant powder, I threw it at him. The blacksmith man didn't understand what was going on. I aimed the flamethrower at him who was covered in flame retardant powder and said he shouldn't feel the heat. I threatened him that I would try this flamethrower on him. The blacksmith man panicked and asked me to stop. This powder can only keep me from feeling the heat from that fire. It might come in handy if I wore it once or twice, but if I continued using it, my armor would melt before I could even notice. I grabbed his shirt and lifted him up. I asked him why he wanted to kill us along with the guards. He also replied that I was definitely not a human. Hearing his answer, I threw him. I again asked how he could know about me. He said that he had been a blacksmith for 50 years. He could notice that something that wasn't human was using his artificial armor. He wasn't sure what evil creature was under this armor, but he asked to think of my death as doing a good deed. Rena, who heard the blacksmith's words, was angry. He suggested that we should kill him. I let this go because there's no point in killing someone who's already on the verge of death. I told the blacksmith man that he didn't need to worry about the guards anymore, because I would kill them, even if he didn't ask me to. As I was trying to leave, I saw a sword that caught my eye. I also took the sword and examined the sword. This sword looks pretty good. Seeing that I took his treasured sword, he tried to stop me and said that the sword took years to make. I pointed the sword at his neck and said that this was payment for trying to kill us. After snatching his sword, we left the blacksmith's shop. We finally arrived again at the Spider Cave ruins. Rena, who brought the what thrower, looked cheerful. From behind Rena, who was cheerful, I hit her neck so she fainted. Even though Rena didn't know, I didn't want to harm her anymore after she died so many times because of me. I asked him to rest for a bit as I will be back soon. As soon as I entered the labyrinth, I immediately finished off the spiders using the Grasmere flamethrower. I burned all the spiders and their eggs I could find. Grasmere's firepower is truly terrifying. I need to use it carefully. If I use it carefully, I can get rid of them all at once. Amidst all that, the head guard appeared and asked what I was doing. He looked a little panicked when he realized that I was killing the spiders they kept. The head guard then tried to calm the situation down and said that I seemed to be lost. He introduced himself as a guard from a nearby town and offered to have his men escort me out of here. He then asked if he liked eggs. Knowing what he was trying to do, I slashed his chest. He was shocked because I realized what he was trying to do. With a face full of annoyance, he asked who I was. He won't understand, but I made an appointment with him. Not understanding what I was talking about, he asked me what I meant. I replied that I had promised him a painful death. The head guard thought I must be crazy. The chief guard then ordered his men to attack me. I also used my flamethrower and burned all the guards who tried to attack. I can't use this for too long, because if I use it too long, then I will melt again like last time. I have to keep my distance and burn them all. I won't let anyone off the hook. The chief guard who was hiding behind a rock attacked me from behind and destroyed my flamethrower with his sword. Seeing my useless weapon, he laughed. He said he didn't know where I could get the gun, but it's an old scrap metal now. He then explained that it was a mistake to burn all the spider eggs because I made the spiders very angry. A moment later, the queen spider slowly arrived at this location. After taking the last surviving spider's egg, the head guard threatens the newly arrived spider queen that she must obey the head guard if she doesn't want to lose her last little baby. He then ordered the queen spider to kill me. The spider queen attacked me with her hands. I tried to parry it using my sword. However, the queen spider's attack was too strong and sent me flying. The strength of the spider queen is not playing games. She is really annoyed. If it wasn't for that fire, I don't know what I would have done. Seeing me struggling against the spider queen, the chief guard laughed scornfully. He was sure that he would not be able to beat him with just a sword. Because I fell, I fell. Seeing Grasmir's shattered fire bottle made me panic. Because I was off guard, the queen spider attacked me with its legs to finish me off. I'm not sure what I'm doing will work, but it's worth a try. The spider queen's attack finally landed. Thinking that I was finished off, the head guard laughed and said that I would just die as food for the spiders. But his suspicions were wrong. The legs used by the queen spider were cut and burned. Queen spider was also moaning in pain. The chief guard who witnessed the incident was shocked. He didn't understand what was going on. With my sword engulfed in Grasmir's flames, I then said to the head guard that I would make sure that he would die a miserable death. The spider queen, who felt that she was in danger, now made repeated attacks using her legs. I slashed at the leg of the queen spider that was coming towards me and cut them all. Taking advantage of the spider queen's weakening, I jumped for the final attack. Using the momentum of my jump, I executed a vertical slash of the sword and slashed through the spider queen's body. Seeing me defeating the spider queen, the chief guard was shocked. It didn't even cross his mind that I could defeat the spider queen. He didn't expect that I wasn't human myself. Thinking that I was letting my guard down having just fought with the spider queen, the head guard tried to sneak up on me from behind. But instead, it was his hand that was cut off. He screamed and winced in pain because his hand was cut off. He didn't need to stop the bleeding thanks to the flames enveloping my blade. It would be a shame if he died too soon from blood loss. If that happens, then I won't be able to fulfill my promise. The head guard thought this was all crazy. He then crawled looking for his men. He shouted, ordering his men to kill me quickly. The call was in vain because I killed all of his men. He also now orders the spiders to kill me right now. That command was also useless because I had already killed all the spiders that were here. The chief guard, who was still crawling on the ground, was starting to feel hopeless. As he was still crawling on the ground, he was hit by Grasmir's sparks that were on the ground. Frantically, he tried to extinguish the fire that spread his clothes. All his efforts were in vain because Grasmir's fire is a fire that will not be extinguished. He who was panicking to put out the fire slowly backed away from me. I tried to warn him, but he just ignored me and told me not to come any closer. The chief guard, who paid no attention to his surroundings, finally fell down the cliff behind him and fell to his death. That's a really stupid way to die. Everything is now over. Even if I wanted to keep this sword, it was too dangerous for me to carry it with me. I also threw the sword covered in Grasmir's fire to the cliff. When I thought about returning to where Reina was, the spider queen that I had defeated started to rise again. I didn't expect that he still had the strength to fight. Since I just threw away my sword, I have nothing to fight back with. I don't know what to do. The queen spider then tried to reach me. I thought that everything was over. However, the queen spider only wanted to take the eggs that were near my feet. He hugged the egg with affection. Thinking that her egg was safe, the queen spider finally collapsed again. The spider queen finally died. A moment later, a message window appeared, saying that I had defeated the web-slinger. The message rewarded me with a Speed LV1 skill that makes me 3 times faster for 5 minutes, which can be used 3 times a day. Once upon a time, a dragon descended into the world, out of nowhere. The dragon is called the Dragon of Destruction because, after its appearance, it destroys almost the entire surface of the world and causes enormous chaos. The people of Gilmador try to fight this riot. 5 warriors from the Special Forces fought the dragon and managed to defeat it with their extraordinary strength. The warriors who survived the war, which consisted of 4 knights, were currently the center of the main family in the era of magic. The era of magic was formed because of this. However, people call this new era the era of decline. The story has been passed down from several generations and has become a common fairy tale for children to listen to, regarding one knight that was not recorded in history. All the children must have heard this story, including Owen, a small child who is happy to hear the story from his father many times without getting bored. But in the middle of the conversation, they were surprised by a hungry teenager amid mutants, while posing like a homeless person. In the Red Rock village where Owen lived, only with the fragrant smell of chicken thighs, the young man who was found unconscious earlier woke up and immediately ate the food while introducing himself. His name is Zach, a teenage traveler who is trying to find out where the Yellow Country is. Hearing this question, Mrs. Owen immediately replied that the place was very far from this village, and if she had to go there the same as walking, she would have to pass through the entire continent. Then the conversation had to stop when Owen's father shouted to his son to help repair the equipment. A few minutes had passed, and Zach's condition was finally back to its prime after resting. Out of curiosity about Owen's work, Zach immediately approached him, and it turned out that they were repairing magic equipment. Zach immediately felt happy, because it was the first time he saw a magic crystal that could supply energy to a broken magic tool. Not long after, one of the residents came to repair his magical equipment, which suddenly became unusable due to a very strange condition. Zach, who was with Owen in the backyard of his residence, then thanked Owen for helping him and immediately gave him a power crystal to make his father's work easier. However, because of this situation, he finally remembered his mother and felt homesick for family togetherness. Time went by quickly. While having dinner together like a family, a feeling of anxiety suddenly came, which made Zach unable to sleep, and at the same time, there was a rat absorbing energy from the crystal belonging to the resident's equipment. Suddenly, screams were heard in the village because the monster had ravaged the surrounding buildings. Hearing the noise, the Owen family immediately came out and immediately they took action. When he saw the mouse, it turned out that he had taken his neighbor hostage. Owa immediately distracted the monster by firing his energy gun. Then the monster immediately turned to attack him. But Zach easily managed to cut the monster's hand before injuring Uncle Olaf. Then Zach immediately took over the fight and asked Uncle to take cover behind him. Without further ado, Zach immediately activated his magic stone, which resonated on his beloved sword, and with one slash, the monster lost its life. Finally, the state of the village has returned to normal, and at the same time, Zach also said goodbye to the Owen family to go on his journey. But before he left, Uncle gave him a present as a token of gratitude for saving the village. The object is a storage bag of space and time. Finally, Zach's parting with the villagers of Red Rock was inevitable, and Zach's journey had just begun. It is rumored that the Chaos Dragon was divided into 5 parts during its last battle, and all of them were defeated by the brave knights. The Chigu family from Skunk Country defeats the evil snake, which is part of the body of the Chaos Dragon. Then the family buried the bones left over from the battle under his country. For many generations, the descendants of the Chigu family became one of the 4 major families that lead mankind to prosperity. Until now, the city had become more modern, as well as the next place he stopped when he arrived. There, Zax was amazed at the country, even the many magic vehicles that he saw for the first time. But suddenly Zach was distracted by the noise from one of the teenagers, who were recklessly driving his skateboard, which even almost injured a small child there. But with quick reflexes, Zach manages to save the girl and intends to judge the red-haired teenager. But the grandmother of the girl who had been saved earlier immediately grabbed Zach's collar and took him away to go home. After saying thanks and giving some food to Zach, Grandma then explained that the child who caused the tantrum was Chiguxiang Tai, who was a member of the Chigu family. After the battle against the Chaos Dragon, the heroes obtained the dragon's blood crystal. The crystal can give power to those who swallow it. They were all called talented people, and from time immemorial, the power would be passed down the lineage of the chosen ones in the main house. The ruler of the city in everyday life relies on magic tools that require the power of crystals. But it's different with talents who naturally have a magic circulation mechanism in their bodies. So without having to introduce magic crystals, although Xiang is not a talent, he is still a direct descendant of the main family and a commoner. He can only surrender when he is bullied. Night has come and Zack is already in front of the Chigu family's residence. When he saw the engraved crest on the Chigu residence, Zack was very curious as to why the crest looked so much like the locket his mother had given him. Because of this curiosity, Zack immediately jumped across the front door wall, but he was immediately bounced off by the barrier that protected the residence. Without thinking, Zack immediately detonated the barrier and immediately went inside. Really an anti-mainstream action, even though his goal was just a visit. Shortly thereafter, a shuriken shot towards him, and he easily managed to block it. Being surprised by the welcome attack, he did not ask where the attacker was. Then the silhouette of a fanged monster appeared and spoke. It had been several years since anyone dared to break into the Chigu residence. It is not important. Whoever it is, his life will surely end. When the figure appeared, they were just 5 cute poodles who looked like humans. Even Zack was suddenly very disappointed, because the silhouette did not meet expectations. Even though the 5 dogs look cute, but for a while it can make Zack troubled by the misunderstandings that occur. Zack can only survive the barrage of attacks by this adorable animal. Even Zack didn't think that their sword power was strong enough. While dodging the attacks they were mustering, Zack kept trying to convey his intentions until he didn't realize he was now surrounded. Zack's only intention here is to visit. Because he had no other choice, Zack immediately pulled out his trick to escape from them. His only real purpose for being here was to find information related to his mother's locket. In the house where the eldest son of the Chigu family, Guangxi, who saw the intruder, was indifferent because the threat level was considered very low, and he preferred to continue his bathing activities. Zack, who is currently being chased by guards who are in the house. Even though they are very easy to defeat, thanks to the machine, a group of dogs dressed in ninja who had managed to surround Zack once again. And now his position is cornered. Because he was already annoyed with defending against the attacks of the guard dogs, Zack then took out his magic crystal, and immediately an explosion occurred. The surprise attack managed to injure the guard dog. He even made the CC building fall to pieces. Underestimating the intruder's appearance too much, the dogs were irritated to have lost track of him once. To Guangxi, who was so astonished by the security at his residence unable to get rid of the trash, he intended to intervene. The girl immediately collided with Zack. Instantly their expressions immediately look ridiculous. Time seemed to stop for a moment. Zack looked at the towering mountains that made his face blush. But it was different from Guangxi's expression, which was anger mixed with embarrassment, so that by reflex, he released fire magic that sent Zack flying far away. Guangxi mercilessly activated his magic equipment immediately, and the moment suddenly became more serious. Zack tries to apologize to Guangxi and promises to replace the door he broke. But the effort ended in chaos when the sentence came out. With burning emotions, Guangxi immediately released Zack with strong flames. But along with the attack, Zack has prepared a ground shield that can withstand the attack. The cute girl immediately praised Zack because of his uniqueness in using magic crystals in battle. But when the compliment came out, Zack instead chose to run away from him by using a smoke bomb. Like Tom and Jerry, they both end up playing tag. In a different room, the current leader ordered his assistant to stop the commotion outside and told him to finish the task quickly. Zack, who had no other choice but to fight Guangxi at that time, the cute girl immediately found out who was the mastermind who sent him to infiltrate. But Zack's response was dismissive. He didn't ask Guangxi to make peace because he didn't want to violate his principle of never attacking a woman. But if this matter wants to continue, then Zack's will also reply. Hearing these words, Guangxi laughed out loud and immediately drew his sword once again. Zack is currently not aware that the enemy in front of him is a pure-blood talent in this century's family. And as proof, Guangxi immediately attacks Zack with his third form of hellfire, the Residence Diamond, a fireball attack that immediately shot toward Zack with a lot of numbers. Seeing the attack, Zack immediately took out an ice magic crystal to block it, and when the ice had been destroyed, a Guangxi appeared which had rushed towards Zack. Feeling the upper hand, Zack immediately took out his brilliant technique, namely the electric magic crystal. Everything has been according to Zack's plan, since earlier when he didn't solely block the fire attack with ice, but at the same time thought about the water vapor in that element. After clashing, then Zack immediately took advantage of Guangxi's carelessness once again with electric magic, which had strong attack power, thanks to the steam, and at that moment, their fight finally stopped. Zack also knows very well that the chance of winning against Guangxi head-on is nil. Therefore, attacking him cleverly is his chance of victory. Then Zack remembered his goal, which was to ask about the pendant his mother gave to Guangxi. But this cute girl didn't know anything about it, and when Zack asked the next question, he was suddenly surprised by the presence of Chigu's assistant leader who came by destroying the wall next to him. It's not just the arrival of the assistant chief. Increasingly pressured because of the arrival of the guard dog behind him, but without many insulting words, he immediately attacked Zack alone with his spoon weapon, causing Zack to be thrown far away. Giving no pause for Zack to stand, the next attack suddenly came, and this time thinly sliced Zack's face. The wound is not without cause because Zack suspects that the weapon of the contempt can change shape into a long scythe. However, for the third attack, Zack anticipated it by taking cover with a smoke magic crystal, which at the same time made him able to breathe for a while, because the situation was getting worse and the conditions were no longer able to deal with despicable or guard dogs that surrounded him. Inevitably, Zack immediately used his secret weapon to escape, namely the teleportation crystal. Right before the combination attack from all of them, Zack had managed to get out of the place. The night finally ended, and the incident became the main topic of the government meeting. This time, some even suggested planning to do an entire city just to keep the spies out. Then to evaluate last night's incident, the Chigu leader asked his employees to show the video he got. Suddenly all the higher-ups there gasped in shock when they saw the pendant that Zack was carrying. It was shown to Guangxi that time, even though he wasn't a talent, the effort to institute martial law across the city had been agreed upon, and otherwise the efforts of the four major families over the years would have been wasted just because of the presence of that one boy. After the meeting, the Chigu leadership immediately recalled the photo where 5 people were still mysterious. Then he apologized in his heart and promised for the stability of his family and land, whoever it was, he would burn him to death. Then the Chigu leader summoned Hina and his team to find the child by all means, either alive or dead. At the residence, Zack was already lying in front of the door. Immediately, Annie, along with her grandmother, immediately took care of him, and when he woke up, he received information that he had become a fugitive throughout the city. Guangxi, who was training desperately with deep emotions after being humiliated by Zack last night. Then when he heard that Zack was wanted all over the city, Guangxi immediately left his training and intended to find Zack because he wanted to repay his embarrassment with his own hands. Zack, who decided to leave this residence, then walked aimlessly in the middle of the city. Then he stopped for a moment because he felt ashamed to see his own face, which became a fugitive and was watched by hundreds of residents there. Strangely enough, when Zack entered the crystal shop, he was immediately greeted warmly by the shop assistant. His goal here was to purchase the reserves of magic crystals that had been used up in his battle last night. Then Zack's eyes immediately fixated on the object displayed in the window and immediately asked about it. According to the shop owner, the item is a magic item left over from an ancient lost country and is closely related to the Sparrow Kingdom civilization. Even though the magic wave was gone and everyone didn't know how to use it, it was a priceless antique. Because he felt interested in the object and fell for the promoter's advances, Zack finally bought it. After Zack washed the artifact clean while trying to activate the object. As a result, there was no reaction whatsoever. Zack, who was annoyed, became indifferent to it. The most important thing was that it was still related to the Sparrow Kingdom, which was in line with its goals later. But when the object was stored in the dimensional bag, Unexpectedly, the magic cubic lit up when it came into contact with Zack's family pendant. Zack, who was walking unconsciously and without direction, then he was curious about the conversations of teenagers who were talking about people who disappeared for no reason in the cake industrial area, and added to the rumors of the emergence of mutants, who thought there were many villages there. Arrived at the industrial zone where Guangxi had been waiting for his presence, without further ado, the cute girl immediately attacked Zack from behind with her technique. But with a good response, Zack managed to dodge the attack with a ridiculous expression. Then Guangxi throws a tantrum at Zack's behavior last night, and this time he promises not to let her off the hook a second time. But as usual, Zack tries to come to terms with his apology, but Guangxi immediately attacks him with emotion. Only able to endure it while thinking of tricks to escape from him, Zack finally managed to escape again. A few moments, and Zack can concentrate on finding the presence of mutants in the industry. But when he smelled blood and felt a strange sound vibration, he was suddenly attacked once again by Guangxi, who seemed so irritated that he was constantly chasing after him. But he didn't come alone, but with a mutant who was also behind him and prepared to attack Guangxi. Seeing this incident, Zack immediately jumped to save the cute girl. But this time Guangxi was not angry and just hit Zack's head while expressing his gratitude. Due to a very unexpected situation, for a while they finally made peace in order to fight against the alien-type mutant that had been in front of the two of them. Not only alone, several other mutants also surrounded Guangxi in various directions, until they were completely surrounded at this time. Because he still didn't think that the mutant was a technology that his family was developing, Guangxi could only stare helplessly. But the reverie was immediately awakened by Zack's screams that told him to join the fight to stop these mutants from running rampant in the city. Responding to Zack's good words, Guangxi immediately raised his sword and asked Zack for the mutant caretaker behind him, while he would face the mutant in front of him. Then simultaneously the two of them shot in rhythm, then slashed the mutant monsters one by one. But after Guangxi succeeded in slashing one of the mutants, he was suddenly careless because he prioritized his show to Zack until he forgot that another mutant monster had jumped at him. Knowing Guangxi's stupidity, Zack immediately took out his ice technique and made the monsters that were going to attack Guangxi freeze, so that with one easy slash, the monster becomes a shard of an ice block. Currently, there is only one last mutant left, which finally makes them attack him together until he is taken down. Out of curiosity about these mutants, Zack immediately checked on the creatures and found that their bodies had long been dead, and they looked more like synthetic creatures than living corpses. But a few moments when Zack checked the body, suddenly Guangxi pointed his sword at Zack's head and said that if this was a secret of the Chigu family, then everyone who knows this must be killed. But unexpectedly, Guangxi stopped his intention and asked Zack to find the truth about the project, even though later he would not forgive Zack's actions, which made him blush. Finally, the two of them walked down the underground passage of the industrial zone and found a very pungent sound and smell. Finally, the two of them reached the end of the room, which was tightly locked, but thanks to Guangxi's intelligence, the door was successfully opened. However, the two of them immediately froze when they saw the hundreds of mutant experiments that were there. From the information Guangxi remembered, the industrial zone was an energy crystal refining factory in the city, and the owner of the industry was the Roland Corporation, which was an organization under the Ministry of Magic, so it had nothing to do with the Chigu family. Increasingly curious about the research, they immediately split up to find additional clues. After walking through a long hallway, accidentally found an abandoned room. The room contains data and items left behind by the researchers. Unexpectedly, when Zack opened one of the boxes, he was stunned to see a pendant in the box containing a photo of Guangxi when he was little with a blue-haired girl. But not long after, Zack suddenly felt a strong jolt from outside and immediately ran to check it out. The shock actually came from Guangxi's battle with the mysterious four-tentacled mutant who also had various elements. Immediately, Guangxi's screams woke Zack to his reverie and asked him to help him immediately. The mutant is known to possess 4 different types of magic, and has an intelligent mindset, so that Guangxi's fire magic can be broken with his only water attribute. The tactic Guangxi thought of to win against the mutants was to deliver critical hits with minimal diversion. Hearing this tactic, Zack in an attitude lunged forward, and when the mutant fired all of his elemental combinations, Zack had been prepared with a stone shield that repelled the attack. Then when their timing was like perfect, Guangxi immediately jumped up and gave a final attack that destroyed all the mutant magic tentacles. But when the figure began to be seen clearly, Guangxi suddenly fell silent because of shock, because the mutant was someone he knew, and his name was Yazid. A figure that was the same as the boy in the pendant he saw, and at the same time Guangxi was almost killed by an attack from his own childhood friend. Once again, Zack had managed to save Guangxi when he was daydreaming, not expecting the mutant in front of him to be Yazid. Then he asked Zack not to hurt him. Therefore, they currently could only dodge the attacks issued by the mutants while looking for loopholes to stop them. Then he accidentally saw the forbidden crystal that was on Yazid's forehead, which is the energy of chaos. Without thinking, Zack immediately lunged forward along with the laser attack. By activating his holding skill, he immediately issued a static arrow which split Yazid's attack into two, as well as destroying the crystals in his flesh without injuring the others. Thanks to this action, Yazid immediately fell down, and he then ran towards his friend with a sad feeling. Finally, he remembered about himself, who is the eldest child of the Scarlet family, as well as his own best friend. While Yazid is the daughter of the water that was there, their friendship began when Yazid protected him who was being bullied by 3 boys, until finally Yazid suddenly left and ended their friendship unilaterally, because he couldn't change the current situation. That, he could only ask about the secret that Decorated was hiding from him. Then he told that the company Roland Corporation has been doing human experimentation for a long time, and this project is called artificial talent. They try to create talents in people who are not gifted, through artificial transformation, and Yazid is one of those experiments. Hearing the story, he scolded him why if it doesn't tell the truth. Then he replied that it was all useless. The Scarlet family would let him disappear at all costs because they considered him a weakness for the project that had to be eliminated. This experiment was related to a defenseless machine without passion that could become a national weapon, and very few humans could maintain his sanity when his body was embedded with chaos crystals. And when the crystals were destroyed, the magic energy in his body would also be used up, and it could be said that it was the end of his life. However, Yazid asked Guangxi not to regret, and even Yazid thanked him, because at the end of his life, he could become a human, which as well as a last wish, he had a wish to die at the hands of his own best friend. With tears in his eyes, Guangxi finally granted the request, and immediately drew his sword at his best friend. Before his death, Yazid said that his last year with Guangxi was the happiest day of his life. After the emotional moment, Zack immediately gave the pendant he had found because he thought that this item was very valuable to Guangxi. When he saw the photo, Guangxi was only sad and disappointed, then asked Zack to help him burn all the experiments in the factory and his best friend, so that places like this would no longer exist in the world. Somewhere their action has been recorded by CCTV cameras. Inside the room is someone who looks happy when he finds a rare toy, when he sees Zack on the monitor screen. At Eni's residence, where they are currently resting there, their arrival was also warmly welcomed by Eni's grandmother, and did not expect one of the Scarlet family to come to visit. It also provides extra service by providing additional dishes to Guangxi. Seeing Guangxi's friendliness, really didn't expect that the girl could change her attitude 180 degrees when chatting with other people. Then Zack asked the reason why Guangxi chose to follow him instead of returning to his luxurious home. According to Guangxi himself, for now, he was ambitious that he would reveal the truth of the incident and would not return home until all was clear. Diverting the conversation with Zack, the little girl said that her room had been cleaned and wanted to invite Guangxi to sleep together. Guangxi, who heard the invitation, immediately accepted and made the atmosphere of the house feel warmer at Grandma's residence. Hina has reported her inability to find Zack, plus she reports that the industrial park has been attacked by an unknown group. Then the report that shocked the leadership the most was regarding Guangxi, who had also disappeared. The day changed, and at this time Guangxi was already in front of the Roland Cooperation Company, with Zack's very embarrassing disguise, because Roland Corporation had very strict guard, coupled with yesterday's attack. He couldn't help but bear the shame and become Guangxi's servant for a while. When entering the company, When they entered, they were immediately greeted by the head of the receptionist, who asked the purpose of Miss Scarlet's arrival at this time, with a good reason. He then said that he was sent by the head of Scarlet to check on yesterday's incident. Unexpectedly, the head receptionist then asked someone who was behind him who looked strange expression. Guangxi casually answered the suspicion and said that he was his new servant, named Ji Hung. Without many questions, they were finally invited to enter the database room. But their actions were suspected by Irene Scarlet, who was her uncle. The two of them were searching for clues in the Roland Corporation database room. Because the room was too big, they decided to split up, and when Zack was relaxing while leaning against the wall and daydreaming thinking about the USB capable of hacking the server, suddenly the back wall opened, and he had found a secret door in the room. He then called Guangxi and immediately went inside. As usual, the basement in the company must first be activated with the crest of the Scarlet family, and when they are in the laboratory. They didn't expect that there were many documents about mutants that were there. Not only that, Zack also found blood samples bearing the name Guangxi. Even there were hundreds of samples from the Scarlet family in the blood storage cupboard. According to the information just now, Botan's talent experiment must require the blood of a thoroughbred. However, for the 4 genetic families of gifted people is a taboo. Moreover, the blood of fingernails and hair wouldn't easily leak to the other party, and as the head of Grandpa Guangxi would not allow that to happen. Then Guangxi remembered the thing that made him lose so much blood, and sure enough, it was 3 years ago, to be exact, the adult festival of the Scarlet family. A high-ranking heir needed to inject his blood into the snakebone altar on that day as a coming-of-age ritual. According to Zack, the Scarlet family also has something to do with this project because most of the samples are blood from family members. Guangxi could only ponder while continuing to read all the research documents that were there. In addition, the research information includes kidnapping civilians who will later be used as research objects, then injecting the blood of a pure teller into their bodies over a very long period of time, as well as slowly replacing their blood with energized magic fluids, and installing maintenance devices embedded in chaos crystals to control the object at will. After tens of thousands of trials, many objects exploded and died. There were some who became uncontrollable mutants, and only a small part of the thousands of objects were successful. Reading it all, he felt very angry, especially when he thought of Yazid, who had been tormented all this time with this project. But not long after that, they were surprised by the arrival of dozens of robots with brains, followed by a man dressed in a lab coat. While talking that Yazid Nagato is the favorite object, and you have to pay for all of this. When the mysterious figure of the professor appears, without further ado, Guangxi immediately asks if he is the mastermind behind the experiment that has something to do with him. With a faint grin on the professor's face, he dismissed Guangxi's notion that Yazid was an object more than a mutant. He was the prototype of his ideal artificial talent, in other words, the next stage of the experiment. Annoyed with the tone and expression of the professor's words, Guangxi immediately attacked him with a fierce slash of fire until the explosion shook the whole room. But when the smoke slowly cleared, the professor did not appear without the slightest injury, thanks to the protection of his new weapon, which consisted of magical energy. Although these weapons were not as powerful as Yazid's, they were numerous and troublesome. Then Guangxi bit fishing for information about the access he got so he could experiment in Snakebone country. Without fear of hearing the question, the professor immediately smiled and replied that this experiment was in accordance with the instructions of the Scarlet family, and the purpose for him appearing before them was his fascination with Zack, who was able to use crystal stones very skillfully, and he was judged to be the perfect material for talent. Artificial. Feeling shocked to show his funny face, Zack was immediately excited and immediately issued the happy magic technique, which dispelled the professor's vision. Then they rushed to run away from him. Still interrupted by their escape, they finally decided to go to the rooftop and try their best to avoid the attacks from the chasing crabs with brains. Even the Guangxi took turns using magical suits to make them fly faster up to the roof. But unexpectedly, an attack suddenly shot to stop the two of them. The attack was none other than the work of the professor with his big experiment. Their actions had actually been predicted, which would be escaping via the upper route. For that, the professor has happily prepared a little play to amuse his favorite toy. Immediately, a strong wave emanated from the screams of the mutant creatures and aggressively attacked Guangxi until their footing was shattered. Not only is his physical attack destructive, the mutant is also capable of emitting extraordinary magical energy, even being able to repel Zack and Guangxi. Not only strong, the mutant also has the ability to think above average. According to the anonymous professor, technically mutant number 2 is the best result of the current research, which is not comparable to the strength of the two of them. Because of the provocation, Guangxi emotionally lunges forward while issuing a Type 6 karma technique. The impact of the attack received by the mutant was minimal, even now due to Guangxi's own carelessness. He almost died if he didn't avoid the magic attack that was 1 inch from his face. It didn't stop there. The mutant then attacked Guangxi once again with energy balls thrown at him, but was parried by Zack by aiming them in the air. Seeing Guangxi, who was always careless, Zack immediately scolded him and told him to be more careful. Because Guangxi's emotions also couldn't be contained, considering that person's treatment of his own best friend, because there was no other choice. He himself had promised to help Guangxi, forced him to mobilize all his strength to face the mutant alone. After saying this, Zack immediately strengthened his stance and immediately lunged at the mutant, causing him to freeze. The mysterious professor was amazed at the combination of magic and told him to be more careful. Annoyed because the professor's chatter that told him to go as good as his forehead, the mutant then hit him and sent the professor flying away. He saw the strange incident. Zack could only be amazed and prepared to withstand the next attack. However, the mutant's power was unstoppable and made Zack thrown far away, even for the mutant, who bounced from side to side and ended up at the end of a wall that was destroyed by the impact of his body. It is also undeniable that the impact of the attack made his beloved sword shatter. Because it was already on the edge, Zack seemed to remember the words of his mother, who said that the pendant he gave was the family symbol and identity of the descendants of the Forgotten. When in a position of life and death, the power will manifest itself in, and now is a situation where Zack will show it to the world. When the last attack was deployed from the mutant, suddenly a black shadow appeared with an aura that was so strong that it could stop the mutant's big fist with just one hand. Originating from Zack, who entered talent mode, this element left Guangxi speechless. He remembered, not only the shark's strength had increased drastically, he also has increased speed. He is even able to reverse quickly and toy with the mutant, as if avenging the deed that the mutant did before. Suddenly a fireball shot towards the mutant creature and managed to develop it instantly. The fireball came from the technique of the head of the Scarlet family who intervened in Zack's battle. He also did not come alone, but with members of the assassins and uncle. Without saying much, the old man immediately asked about Zack's act of entering Scarlet's previous residence, while observing the hydromatic pupils and the aura of darkness deities all over Zack's body. Smelling the anxiety that will ensue, Guangxi immediately says that all these actions are based on Guangxi's own will that drew Zack to investigate the mutant project together. Then grandfather Guangxi asked his subordinates to help Guangxi, who was injured, and immediately issued a fireboard technique that was stronger than before to kill Zack quickly. Because being surprised by the sudden situation and the opportunity to avoid the attack at close range is impossible at this time, can't just give up. Will he really end up there without knowing anything about his family? But a miracle came from the artifact group he was saving at the time. The object suddenly resonated and activated guard mode, which was able to protect Zack from the massive explosion caused by the attack. Even the entire footing was completely destroyed around Zack at that time. Immediately everyone there was silent in astonishment, thinking he was dead. But swiftly, Guangxi immediately took advantage of the moment and immediately threw the plane key for Zack to escape from here without wasting this precious opportunity. Zack immediately shot towards the plane and immediately left Guangxi with his thanks as parting. Hearing that sentence while holding his grandfather from shooting Zack, can only scream run as far as possible, and don't come back, said Guangxi. Seeing Zack run away, can only ask his father if letting him go like that is not risky. But the response from the head of Scarlet was only to see Zack leave with a serious look while saying to himself whether he is your descendant of a genie. In Zack's attempt to escape, the enemy kept trying to chase and shoot at the plane he was traveling on. But these efforts could not bring down the plane. Strangely, when he opened his eyes after waking up from his fainting state, Zack was surprised by a girl who had been driving his plane. But the moment ended when the plane on which Zack was traveling fell and was stranded. Time went on long enough where Zack fainted on the beach again, then woken up by the crab there. When he woke up, he immediately tried to repair his plane, which was now damaged and ran out of energy. He felt hopeless, and there was no hope for him to return. He then headed towards the ruins, hoping to find something useful there, but without Zack realizing that he was being watched by a little girl there. But on his way, Zack then remembered about the place which was set aside for the disposal of the magic machines and the debris left behind. And he felt that the island was the place he was currently stepping on, where there was no sign of human activity. After walking for a long time, he decided to rest, sitting leaning on a box, thinking how to go to the Sparrow Kingdom and complete the agreement with his mother. He just woke up and was astonished and wondering about who was the person who had bandaged his wound, and who was the girl he met yesterday on the plane. Interrupted in his reverie, Zack then heard a voice screaming for help, and swiftly he rushed to the source of the sound. When at the source of the sound, Zack was then surprised by a group of law enforcement robots who were attacking a little girl. But just as the robot was about to fire its attack, Zack quickly jumped in and saved the little girl, while annoyed and asked what the reason was for them attacking him. Where it was suspected that the bee robot also attacked Zack, but he quickly jumped to avoid the attack while carrying the little girl. Zack was very forced to take out his sword and emit dark energy in his hand, then cut all the robots with ease. Then Zack turned around and asked the little girl if she was okay. But the girl did not answer and walked backwards because she looked scared. Suddenly, he fell tripping over a rock that made the hat he was wearing open. Zack was suddenly surprised when he saw the little girl's ears. Then Zack assured the little girl once again that he would not hurt her, and when Zack's hand wanted to check the little girl's body, he then bit her hand and tried to run away. But quickly he caught the little girl that made her thrash to be released. A few moments passed, and it was seen that the girl had calmed down when Zack treated her wounds. After the treatment was finished, the girl then went to bring the energy crystal from the plane that Zack's was on, while mocking it as a sign of farewell. Zack asked who the girl really was. Zack was forced to walk towards the girl running and tried to find her again. But suddenly Zack was surprised by an arrow that shot towards him, and he thought that this was an ambush from the Scarlet family. While running and parrying some of the attacks, Zack nimbly was already hiding in his safe spot. It is shown that the attack actually came from a group of humans who attacked him without reason. When they were caught off guard, Zack revealed his ghost-like figure. He felt Zack's presence, which looked scary. The group of humans immediately formed a defensive formation and certainly looked very scared. Then Zack tries to find out what caused them to attack him because there was no problem between the two of them before. But this sentence made some look angry and started telling stories that it was humanity that made their lives miserable, that made their race slaves with explosive collars around their necks. That race as a sign and with the pride of their kind, the group of beasts then brandished their bows again as they had no other choice. Even though Zack has explained his current position, inevitably violence is the only way to resolve the misunderstanding between them. However, their tension suddenly subsides after the arrival of a little girl named Misia, who tries to reconcile the conflict. However, the group of people instead told Misa to leave, but the little girl still insisted that she would not go and tried to explain about the incident this morning where she was saved by Zack when she was attacked by a patrol robot. But the tension grew until the two of them prepared to attack each other. Unexpectedly, their actions were suddenly stopped by the voice of the leader there. Then the leader expressed his disappointment at Kazam, who was the leader of the group that intended to attack Zack. Because the words of the patriarch were absolute, Kazan suddenly stunned and apologized. To reconcile the two of them, finally the patriarch invited Zack to gather together and try to introduce people from his race, although some of the residents looked at her with suspicious faces. The leader of the races there introduced himself. He was called Miranda from the dog tribe, thanked him for saving Misia this morning. Responding to these words, Zack could only blush and say it was nothing to him. Then Zack asked Miranda why they live in a place like this. Then before answering a question from Zack, Miranda offered a special wine. Then he started to tell about the history of the beasts. In the final battle, the beast race was one of the important forces to defeat the demon dragon and army. Then, after the Great War ended, the four major families of mankind founded the Ministry of Magic and created a magic race that symbolized a new civilization and became the beginning of a nightmare. During that era, humans began to persecute and treat beasts arbitrarily. They are traded like traded goods, and their labor is more controlled with a magic necklace that symbolizes their shame as slaves. If you don't obey orders, the necklace can kill the beasts. When it was the unpardonable sin that humans had committed against the beast race. According to Zach, both humans and beasts are land creatures, and humans do things that make other races and the gods hate them. Then he said that this abandoned place was the safest place because the remnants of the magic machine here had blocked the magic trackers from the Ministry of Magic on the necklaces attached to their necks, so that the beasts found peace in the forgotten corner of this continent. Here Zach understands why Kazan and the others wanted to kill him. Then he again asked Miranda, "Is there a way to solve the hatred between humans and the buses?" Not knowing that answer, Miranda just said that Zach should have asked the BIs who had died under the tyranny of humans. But in between serious conversations, Miranda said that Zach was a special human, and the first time he dared to drink and eat beast food. That statement didn't make Zach surprised and spit out the drink that was in his mouth to make Miranda laugh out loud. Miranda then tells Zach that if it wasn't for saving Misha, he would have been a corpse a long time ago. Responding to those words made him wonder why Miranda could say it without changing the expression on her face. Then Zach again asked why he was allowed to come here, and was not afraid that later Zach would tell the whereabouts of the beast tribe. With a seductive smile, Miranda believes that Zach will not do it, plus he also has the power to see a person's emotions. And at this time, Zach is more inclined to be angry with the human race. And Miranda considers that the only human who has a pure mind and knows nothing about the world itself. Hearing that Miranda was also a talent made Zach gape in surprise. Zach then innocently did not expect that many talented people from the beast tribe, who instantly made Kazan angry, thought he was underestimating his tribe. However, the magic ruins humanity left behind gave them a chance to breathe and survive through the remaining energy crystals. He could only lead his tribe to fight back in this forgotten corner of the land, nor did he need anything else as long as he could watch the children of his tribe grow healthy day by day. For the fourth time, Zax then asked, "Are the robotic bees that attacked the beach an errand robot from the Ministry of Magic who has not given up on searching for fugitives?" With a calm expression, Miranda then confirmed Zach's question, which made her move, willing to help them. Hearing that he felt that the human heart was very hypocritical because in the past beasts and humans fought side by side, but now they were taken prisoner. After hearing that, Zach was determined to change the world, even though it was very difficult. However, it is the only way to help everyone. Then he also remembered his mother, who often told him, even though the journey is far as long as the direction is right, and as long as he keeps walking, then he will surely reach his destination. He heard those words while looking at her holding her family necklace. Miranda was taken aback, and the conversation was soon distracted by Misha's excitement finding an energy crystal in a human spaceship that was tattered and uncool and looked weak. Zach wanted to say that the crystal was broken, but Miranda quickly coded Zach so he didn't continue his sentence, because saying that would destroy Misha's joy and ambition to collect energy magic crystals for water supply and cooking ingredients. Even though Miranda knew the crystal had been damaged, she kept it a secret and praised Misha's efforts for helping ease the burden on her people over the years. Miranda had learned something from the human race, that lying with good intentions will keep hope alive. Zach was very curious about the necklace tied around Miranda's neck and wanted to try to get it off, although some people got worried when Zach suddenly grabbed her by the neck. Miranda, however, was able to convince everyone that Zach was a strong talent. But when Zach tried to access the necklace circuit with track energy, Zach still couldn't open it because it was too complicated for him. But this intention has become good faith, which has changed Zach's image in the eyes of the villagers there, even though it has failed. Zach has a second plan, where the next day he makes a protective tower that can interrupt the transmission signal from the government's magic necklace. Miranda, who was surprised by Zach's idea, then guessed that the main goal Zach would be looking for was the kingdom of sparrows. Since Zack hasn't said anything about it, he then asks why he knows about it. Then, with a dazzling smile, Miranda said that she knew because she had seen the necklace she was carrying, where when she was little, Miranda had seen a totem that was very similar to the Sparrow Kingdom, and as a gift had helped Miranda's race give the most valuable thing they had guarded for years. Although it looks dirty, the motorbike is the first time a magic vehicle. When he encountered this, of course Zack and one of his friends were amazed, because generally magic vehicles are common human vehicles. The chat seemed so harmonious that Miranda was sure that a future of peace between the races would exist. After a while, cleaning the motorbike with Zack and his friends were amazed to see the changes that appeared on the motorbike. Miranda allows Zack to try it. Zack happily started the motorbike and tried it. Finally, the farewell has come, and Zack doesn't forget to express his gratitude, because with that motorbike, he doesn't have to climb mountains and go through valleys. But Miranda reminds Zack that when Zack was helping Misha, the robot had already sent data that had been recorded at the Ministry of Magic's Information Center, and Zack's was automatically declared as unregistered talents. The Ministry of Defense generally wouldn't order executors to arrest the lower races, but it was different for the unregistered talents who endangered the balance of the world. Especially Zack. Miranda admits that the motorbike is code for Zack to go away, and Miranda apologizes for this, but Zack responds with a smile and says thank you. He previously had a more serious problem, so there was no need to worry about such a small problem. This remark also marked Zack's departure, and as a promise Zack coolly said, "If I promise the day when beasts and humans live in peace will come soon." The goodbye then shifts to Zack's excitement of riding a motorcycle for the first time, even when he encounters some bees. There, Zack destroys it without great effort. After driving for a long time, Zack finally decided to rest in an old park on a mountain hill and immediately put his motorbike in a dimension bag. He then rested his back by lying down first, but when he closed his eyes for a moment he realized that there were several people approaching him, and instantly Zack was caught without a fight. These people are emissaries from the Ministry of Magic to forcibly arrest Zack and deliver him to the judicial court. Is shown Zack's journey on the plane that takes him to judicial court. In the narrow crystal room, Zack seemed to be bouncing around until then Zack heard a voice that seemed to be talking to him. The Master. Your physical functions are currently recovering and his status is in good condition, but your current energy is also unable to break through this prison cage. And please, Master does not speak loudly because it detected 3 people within 10 meters. Hearing these words, Zack was increasingly confused about who was speaking, and asked him to show himself. Agreeing to orders from his master, suddenly the Rubik from his dimensional pocket glowed, and a robotic figure suddenly appeared gracefully to make Zack fascinated. They clash. Then Zack guessed that it was him who bandaged his wound on the plane, and with his cute expression, he answered exactly, Masters. He guessed that she was an artificial intelligence that looked so good, but Zack wonders, why did he call him Master? The robot confirms the conjecture and calls it the Intelligence Humanoid Project Wheel. He had signed with Zack's last Sunday, and will be Zack's exclusive carry. At this time, Zack suddenly imagined Loli's face changing into a Rubik's Cube. Quite ridiculous. Then Zack immediately realized and asked if the AI came from the land of sparrows, and if he knew anything about that place. But unfortunately, the AI does not know anything about the Sparrow Kingdom, because he comes from the city of Harapan Inda. The executors who were talking about Zack for shouting incoherently, according to one of his friends, it was normal for the people they arrested, but they were only tasked with catching him, and there was no need to deal with the root cause. Feeling curious about Zack, one of the executors asked what crime the boy had committed to order 3 members of the hunters and the captain to personally take him to headquarters. But this curiosity must be buried, because Shadow Hunter number 3 sounds. Don't ask for any identity, and just carry out orders. Time passed. Finally, their journey had arrived at the floating city. Then they were greeted by the head of the floating city South Division, 4th of the Scarlet family. He was then the leader of the executor named Fox. Began to deliver his performance. Then Falcon delivered strange words that made Fox speechless. We just follow his orders and don't worry, because no one can escape my sight in this floating city. It turns out that the purpose of Falcon Scarlet's plan at that time was to make Zack a prisoner of the city. on the floating suburb of August. Although Fox doesn't know his purpose, he simply conveys to his partners that Zack has 3 days to get free before a subpoena. If he tried to escape, he would be hunted down by the Ministry of Magic directly. After delivering the message, he forcibly closed Zack's eyes, which indicated that the prison cage had been deactivated. Then the first sight of astonishment was that of the legendary building in the Ministry of Magic that was so huge. Then Zack accidentally reminds him of his similarities with the Owen family, where Uncle Olaf once worked in a floating city as an apprentice to the president of the Union. This magic, he also said, if the goal is the kingdom of the sparrows, if there is, the chance Zack was asked to go to the floating city, August, because there is the pinnacle of human magic aggregation. Although in the end, Zax had seen what Uncle Olaf had said. But the status now seems to be not good. He instantly forgot about his troubles, and wanted to have some fun first for the next 3 days. By running around in the middle of the city and looking at the buildings there, even Falcon, who had been watching his behavior all this time, seemed to smile at his ridiculous behavior. Zack suddenly thought that if this is the biggest ministry of magic, then information about the Sparrow Kingdom can be found easily, and he intends to look for it while spending his time here. But he refused this intention and explained to his master that he is currently being watched by the Ministry of Magic, and for the sake of personal safety, Zack, please do not act stupidly. Because of this suggestion, Zack finally discouraged him and preferred to repair his broken weapon. After several hours had passed, Zack's face was shown, who seemed to regret repairing his weapon because it was considered too expensive. Plus, AI also mocked him that his master was included in the group of poor people. But behind the very expensive repair costs, it turns out that Zack didn't spend any money at all because the card that Guangxi gave him was not only an airplane key, but also an unlimited debit card. Suddenly, he was poked by a young girl who offered him daily tours around. The girl heard Zack's next 7, which was to look for the town library, and sweetly said, "You might be a newcomer here. If you don't know, even if you're a talented person, you won't be able to enter places like the library or archives. But with my help, you can definitely enter the special lane even if you are a criminal, though." Because he felt insulted by the ridicule, Zack was forced to accept it, and at the same time asked about the cost. Because the girl had her own intentions, she randomly gave the rate according to the gold she had at the time. They finally agreed. But on the way to the library, he seemed to be watched by a cute girl who had hair like Guangxi, where he is now in the ambiguous position of a prisoner of the city who is with his grandmother on tour. Plus lots of grandmothers who are enthusiastic about telling their grandchildren, who are considered nice to chat with. Then the chatter stopped for a moment upon the arrival of the guide, who said they had arrived at the biggest magic medicine shop. If interested, they are allowed to come down and buy it. Hearing that, Zack was suddenly disappointed and asked the tour why he didn't immediately take him to the history library, which was his current goal. But the guide casually replied that this was a travel route that had been arranged, so don't ask too many questions. On the way, Zack is shown to be depressed because of being fought over by the grandmothers. Finally, Zack's trip to the city library is typical of arriving at his destination, and not forgetting that Zack shows his courtesy by saying goodbye to the parents of his traveling companions. After that, Zack and the green-haired girl entered the library without a hitch, and when they saw the books inside, Zack was shocked and questioned how he would find the information he wanted. Then the girl told that there was a robot that could help find the book she wanted to find, and the robot would automatically deliver it to that place. Then the girl asked what book was missing. She wanted to find it innocently. Zack then answered the question, but before getting to the point of what he said, he was stopped by Ai, and immediately changed his words for a strange reason. Feeling that she had failed to dig up the information, the girl finally gave up and waited for Zack in the rest area for the next hour. Zack immediately looked for information related to the Sparrow Kingdom. However, because he was curious, Zack asked why Ai told him to stop what he was saying. Can the guide not be trusted? Then Ai replied that she detected the signal generator on the back waist since the girl, the tour girl known as Kaka, she's currently reporting to her superiors that the target is very careful, so the information she gets is very minimal. Plus, he looked weak. He was able to block the detection transmission magic he had tried. So far, Kaka only knows that his name is Zack from the village, and he feels that the tour girl has been suspected by Zack all along. However, she currently has him perfectly watching, and if the target does any strange actions, she will restrain him as soon as possible. Then shown the figure of the man behind the call, who at the same time said, as long as we can dig even the slightest bit of information from Zack, Master Falcon will contribute in front of the fantastic Ministry of Magic. But a few minutes after the conversation, Zack had run away and disappeared from his radar, and Kaka frantically looked for him while running around the library. But the girl doesn't realize that Zack is currently dressed like a servant from Guangxi Relics at that time to disguise himself. Finally, Zack became more curious, starting from the Scarlet family to the Ministry of Magic. One by one, they want information related to it. Unexpectedly, people from the Ministry of Magic will disguise themselves as guides and try to get close to Zack. But we can be sure that the Turgot girl is the only one who has magical fluctuations in her body, and the parents that Zack meets are just ordinary tours. Then I told that when Zack entered the city, he felt that there were many surveillance cameras watching Zack. But by now the Master is clear of any tracer waves. Then the file thinks if the time given is still 3 days ahead. Now is the right moment, but AI prefers for the Master not to take risks, because if he is already under the enemy's surveillance, he can set up an ambush at any time. It is discovered that his father's heirloom is second to none, and even though it's a trap, he can't leave it alone. Time goes by quickly and the day will turn to night. Unexpectedly, Zack bravely returned to the weapon shop to get his sword. With a joyful expression, there had successfully completed it, even though the sword was very special. Not only was the material rare, but this sword contained mysterious ancient magic. Although the materials have changed to become more modern, when Zack holds it, it seems that the sword is much heavier than before, as well as the sharpness that is reflected in the cool design. Because he had no other purpose and he was tired of running away, Zack finally stopped at a park not far from there. And when he got there, Zack was amazed when he saw the poneglyph stone written there. Then he met an old geezer who said that this place was a famous and important place in the city. The stone is inscribed with the names of heroes who have contributed to human society, especially the ancient phosphor steel rock core in the center. On it are the names of heroes who died in the battle at the end of time. Hearing this, Zack became even more curious about the end-time war hero and how there could be traces of destruction on such an important stone. But when Zack turned to chat with the old geezer, his figure suddenly disappeared after placing flowers and drinks. He didn't want to think about that figure. He then took a rest on a park bench, then chatted casually with his AI. The robot then said that this place might be a bit special, as no surveillance magic had been detected in this area. Then Zack changed the subject and asked about the City of Hope he had mentioned. According to AI, the country has existed for a long time, but still no similarities with the Sparrow Kingdom have been found. But a few minutes later, I found a database that was still locked in that area and possibly related to the Sparrow Kingdom. But it seems that Zack must be disappointed because the chip is currently in the recovery stage. Even though he didn't get any information, Zack then asked I not to call him Master but his own name, Zack. But the AI cannot understand the command. It only has orders to protect its master's life at all costs. It was the meaning of life for him. He honestly says that he is a tool of the master. When the contact is established, the core of his life has already merged with the master, and when the master dies, he will self-destruct. After hearing those words, Zack then stroked the robot and said the robot also has a body temperature. Then why should he forcefully disguise himself as a cold artificial intelligence? Because of the actions of the robot master, I looks blushing while still saying that she was created indeed as an artificial intelligence. Then Zack excitedly thanks him for saving himself more than once. Then Zack decided to name the robot by calling Lin. He wished that his bond with Lin was not just artificial intelligence, but as his most trusted friend, and with a smile as sweet as a crocodile. Zack then stretched out his hand and made Lin instantly blush. A few moments have passed from this awkward moment. Then Zack is approached by a woman who is mysterious to him. The woman then asked if Zack was someone who had disturbed the Scarlet family. With a smug expression, he then recalled that while scratching his head. After confirming Zack's whereabouts, the woman immediately told him to come with her. Finally, he said yes to the invitation, even though he knew the figure who invited him had large and very strong magic fluctuations. While walking slowly behind him, Zack felt the familiar feeling of being known and trying to wonder to the point of wanting to touch his shoulder. But swiftly the woman said, "I had never known you, and I just realized I saw you. You have pissed me off now, but I won't be able to kill you. You better shut up and don't act too much, just follow me," he said. After hearing that, Zack was immediately frightened and then froze and continued to follow him. Suddenly, the woman immediately pulled Zack and asked him to hide from the robot supervisor who was in front of him. He was curious, then asked why they had to hide from the humanoid robot. With a cynical answer, the woman again said that Zack should not know many things and still follow him. In an unfamiliar building, a yellow-haired man was reporting the situation that they had lost track of Zack by now. The last image they captured was Zack being seen with a woman Falcon knew. For this reason, the punishment that will be given to the spy agency must be postponed. On the outskirts of a very seedy floating city, which looks different from the center of the city. The girl then explained that wherever the place is, there must be a difference between the rich and the poor. The only view of the city center is the bright side of the floating city. But after arriving at the girl's destination, Zack felt suspicious because he thought he would be taken to court for interrogation. Then, with uncontrollable emotions, he then brandished his sword and asked her true identity. Calmly, the woman then said her real purpose was only ordered by someone to give Zack a place to live. Then he complimented Zack, who didn't look like a fool while taking off his mask. With wide eyes, Zack was immediately surprised to see her beauty. At the Ministry of Magic headquarters, where there are two old grandfathers who are talking about Zack's act which has caused trouble in the Scarlet family, then the bespectacled grandfather who is known to be from the Ministry of Magic, and the former leader asks, "Is he descended from that person?" The head of the Scarlet family then said yes to the question, with the proof that Zack is a dark energy user, and his eyes are similar to that person. With subtle sarcasm, the bespectacled grandfather asked, "Why did you tell me this information? The other two elders should care about this more than me, but I remember that you were the one who opposed this purge plan the most." After hearing this, the leader of Scarlet, known as Maru, immediately hit the table until it shattered into two. But the move had no effect on the bespectacled grandfather, who seemed to know his true nature. He conveys that he can assume the identity of the Minister of Magic to order a trial. But he was eager to meet in person, which indicated that he wanted to spill the beans. In response to that sentence, Maru simply said, "Because some things have become history, they should always be buried under the dust forever." Zack is taking a shower and wonders why his mother told him to find out the truth about his father. But Zack's serious expression immediately changed when he was startled by Lin's presence in front of his eyes and immediately threw the cute girl out of the bathroom. A few minutes later, when he had cleaned his body, he then lay down on the bed and thought about the figure he previously thought was a bottle. The girl immediately took her words back and said, "Gosh, it turns out that you are not only stupid but also blind. It seems that woman is the sister of Scarlet Guangxi." Hearing the information, Zack was immediately worried and asked about Guangxi's current state. But the girl told Zack to be calm, because he really hates men with low intelligence. The girl then said that currently Guangxi is in prison and is fine there. Then Zack remembered the card Guangxi gave him and entrusted it to the girl to return. But he refused the request and told Zack to return the valuables himself while saying goodbye to go. Remembering the girl's words, he could only twirl the card Guangxi gave him and miss him. Then Lin appeared and asked who the two women were. Then Zack explained about his meeting with Guangxi related to his brother's kindness. When Zack was sleeping comfortably, Lin then screamed because he felt a sign of danger. But unfortunately, when Zack opened his eyes, there were already several people from the Ministry of Magic who raided him, and Zack was once again caught while sleeping. Evidence against Zack has been gathered, and he will soon be sent to court. After Zack's arrest for the second time, the trial day finally started. Zack is brought to the Supreme Court of the Ministry of Magic and is expected by Falcon and Kaka. When in front of the building, there was no greeting between them as they escorted Zack to the courtroom. In the courtroom of the Supreme Court of Arbitration, where the elders were seen there, they were more concerned about Maru Scarlet's decision to retire next year and be replaced by one of his successors, Guangxi Scarlet. Although the determining authority will be decided by the Ministry of Magic Assembly, then they talk about Zack's rare ability, dark energy. If they could compromise in the past, this situation would never have happened, said the bespectacled grandfather. Hearing those words, Maru could only say that everyone should pay according to what he chose. Zack is now sitting on the trial bench. Some officers pass on a rule whereby a trial of high degree of trouble is immediately conducted, and they ask the prisoner to be quiet and obey. Otherwise, they will use violent punishment to appease him. Hearing this, Zack suddenly did not accept it and defended that the crime he had committed was only entering and destroying some government property, and he did not accept being called a high-level criminal. Hearing Zack's chatter, the officer immediately electrocuted Zack to silence him and then installed an honesty detector in his head. After that, the chief judge, who looks like Farsia, starts his trial. It is known that the judge is known to be scary so that he can make convicts disappear from the world. Those rumors weren't just rumors, because the power he possessed was forbidden. After using that technique, Zack felt like being controlled like a puppet, which made Lin panic in fear. The questions asked by the judge were in the form of name, place of birth, as well as goals and information related to his past. Because Zack was under the influence of magic, he easily said it, and surprised the elders when they heard that Zack's goal was the Sparrow Kingdom. But before answering in more details, Zack suddenly rebelled, and he was completely able to get out of the mind control effect. The trial soon ended, and the verdict that Zack received was life imprisonment. On the 9th floor, which is a gathering place for SSS level criminals, after the trial was over, the officers immediately escorted Zack to the plane, and that moment was seen by Guangxi's brother known as Yuko. He reported the news to Guangxi. Then when he heard about it, he immediately panicked, and blamed Yuko for not being able to hide it, even though the mission is impossible to do. Guangxi details his meeting with Zack, as well as Yazid's problem, which has become the object of research. After telling a long story, Guangxi asked Yuko to help him somehow. Hearing this request, Yugo refused, and reminded Guangxi that he was the future of the Scarlet family. Therefore, he better not get into trouble with his grandfather. Yuko unilaterally hangs up her phone, then remembers Yazid, who is her close friend. As a child, Yuko could only see photos from afar, who were very happy together with Yazid. But Yazid then approached her and asked her to play together. However, Yuko refused the invitation because she thought that she was not equal to Guangxi, who was a pure blood family, because he couldn't force it. Finally, Yazid gave him a harmonica before Yugo ran away. The harmonica is a gift that Yugo has guarded until now. Guangxi and Yugo are the same friends regardless of differences in dignity. Yazid asked Hugo to be more confident in the future. After remembering that memorable moment while playing the harmonica she left behind, Yoko finally decided to save Zack because she felt that Guangxi couldn't do much. He will replace him as an assassin, and will do everything for the successor of the Scarlet family. In the Scarlet family's guild that showed Guangxi was there, he decided to get out of that place. But already intercepted for the 5th time, according to his duties, he must keep Guangxi from leaving the temple. But without the slightest word being said, Guangxi immediately advanced with skill, but Hina easily resisted the attack and asked him not to do anything useless. He even easily threw Guangxi with one swing. According to Despicable, even though Guangxi inherited the strongest talent of the Scarlet family, he still couldn't break through the 2nd stage of his fire magic, therefore it was absolutely impossible to defeat the current Hina. Then the servant told that if he could not beat him, competing with the Ministry of Magic's people was beyond her reach. Hearing the ridicule made Guangxi even more excited and turned his fire sword into a spear. Right, I have to beat you today, otherwise I'd still be the heir to the Scarlet family, am I right? With the end of those words, he then attacked contemptuously once again, until he was a little cornered. But when she saw an opening for her reckless attack, Hina immediately landed a punch so powerful that Guangxi was sent flying a 2nd time. Then Hina asked to end all of this, because she is one of the strongest talent heirs in the entire continent. Hearing these words, Guangxi then asked if all that was true. Why didn't his grandfather let him train his talent and always learn about physical combat first? Contempt. Then tells the reason why his grandfather did all this. When he was a baby, he was known as the kind of scarlet family who once in 100 years and his talent awakened faster than normal humans, that is, at the age of 6. Even he was a precious treasure, whose name spread throughout the Snakebone Empire. But his ability is a double-edged sword that makes the user's effect cause a burden on the body, Guangxi. When he was little for that, his grandfather trained Guangxi specifically because there were so many talents out there who really hated the Scarlet family, as well as there was contempt here to keep Guangxi from leaving the temple before he released 8 flames of destruction. He felt as if he was motivated. Guangxi immediately intended to meet these conditions within 3 days so he could quickly meet Zack, who was currently in trouble. On the 9th floor of the prison island, from the basement of the prison island, it can be seen that Zack, who was sleeping there, suddenly woke up and immediately collided with an unknown figure. Then Zack moaned in pain until he stopped and wondered what this place was. I finally met a human after more than 10 years of being here. On the 9th floor of the basement in the place called Prison Island, also known as Absolute Prison. Zack opened his eyes slowly. His head hurt because it seemed to have been hit very hard. After trying to focus himself, Zack immediately shifted his focus to looking for the missing storage bag. Frantically, he tried to look for it in all directions. Seeing Zack looking very panicked, a large man told Zack to stop looking for his belongings, because all prisoners sent to the prison island will be searched and all their possessions will be confiscated. Then the figure immediately stood up, saying, "This place is like hell for the living, a gathering place for the deadliest criminals and countless dangerous species." Then the uncle immediately approached Zack and asked his name. Zack answered the question while covering his nose, because he couldn't stand the smell of a person who hadn't bathed for 10 years. The uncle did not forget to introduce himself, who was known as Roach. Then Zack's confirmed again by asking about his lost items. Had it been confiscated by the Ministry of Magic? Uncle Roach then approached Zack because he was very interested in Zack's very special eyes. The eyes felt familiar in his past. Then Uncle Roach asked again about what crimes committed by Zack until someone as young as him arrived in this place. Zack then replied that he only accidentally destroyed the Scarlet family's barrier and some intelligence devices from the Ministry of Magic. But feeling something odd about the story, Roach spoke up. Even if anyone from the Scarlet family was killed, they wouldn't necessarily be here. To make sure, Roach then asked about his talent. Zack shamelessly showed his talent, which made Uncle Roach suddenly smile widely and immediately attacked Zack with his full power. With quick reflexes, when he saw the uncle's attack, Zack managed to avoid it without a scratch. But when he saw the shattered footing in front of him, the uncle's figure had disappeared and was behind him. With the energy attack that had accumulated in his fist, fortunately the attack missed by an inch. When Zack defended and avoided it, according to Zack, the magic power that Uncle Roach had was as strong as the old grandfather from the Scarlet family who had attacked him in the past. Zack then asked why the uncle was attacking him, but coincided with the question. Uncle Roach was twirling the chain in his hand, then attacked Zack with a lash of combined energy through the chain, because there was no other choice. Zack also activated his dark energy, which made all the attacks heading towards him bounce off. Seeing the overflowing energy from Zack made Roach smile, confident that he was the one. Because Zack was already in battle mode, he also did not hesitate to attack Roach with an unexpected kick, but the attack only made Uncle Roach smile amused, because Zack's attack seemed very weak. Then he lightly threw Zack's forward, because he didn't want to fall that quickly. Zack tried to attack him once again with the first of pragmatism technique, but the attack was easily read. Because of his own carelessness, Zack was almost slammed forward with Uncle Roach's powerful attack. Then the eccentric uncle praised Zack's dodging skills. But not long after, he found Zack hiding and firmly hit him until he was thrown far away and was helpless. Because he was not strong, Zack admitted defeat and resigned himself if he wanted to kill him. Uncle Roach was only joking. He took the fight as a sign of their friendship. Hearing that, Zack was even more confused. But as his apology, Uncle Roach immediately treated the injured Zack. Seeing that, Zack was very surprised, because he was the first time seeing people with various talents. Then he explained that his talent was copying, which means that he can steal various talents from other people anytime and anywhere. But Roach said his talent was not comparable to the dark energy that Zack's had. When Roach was young, he had seen a very strong dark energy user who was not comparable to Zack's. At this time, the story made Zack stunned, because he found a person who had the same talent as him. Uncle Roach then judged that the technique he used was very ineffective. Uncle Roach then flicked Zack while forcibly releasing his energy, and said that Zack's energy release was excessive, had a weak point that could damage the energy, and that the technique was a waste. After getting impromptu knowledge from him, Zack then asked, who was the figure Roach said, who had the exact same energy power as him? The uncle then said that not only their energy was exactly the same, the color of their pupils was also the same. She was one of the strongest people in the mainland. At that time, people called her Lin. He heard Roach's words, immediately fell silent, then smiled broadly and said that he would follow him from now on. After several years of waiting, Roach was overjoyed to meet Lin's descendant at this time and thought that all of this was the destiny that had been written. In the magic court, Maru was looking at Zack's confiscated equipment. According to the bespectacled grandfather, Maru should not worry because the sentence handed down to Zack was able to bury him alive. But Maru still doubted. Then the four of them would not suffer and cause many casualties. Even Ceramus could not get useful information from his interrogation, although time can eliminate all information starting from his descendants, even the Sparrow Kingdom. But Maru currently has a bad feeling, and as if the feeling is true, when he just held Zack's sword, the weapon activated its own magic and attacked Maru to make him stand in fear. If it weren't for the long time and exhausted energy, the attack could have cut his neck. Even the two elders were unaware of the magic and elemental fluctuations of the sword. They immediately sealed the sword and ordered the guards to keep it in a closed and secret place. But in between the orders, there was someone who shouted reporting an urgent situation where 18 members of the monitoring team had been attacked. The remaining captain returned with serious injuries and wanted to convey important information, namely 400 miles from the city. There was a super large monster with a body length of more than 300 meters that was approaching. With a serious look, they immediately gathered members and sent invitations to the other two major families, because at this time the Ministry of Magic would enter the second level of combat readiness status. The guard carrying Zack's weapon began to enter the warehouse and store it with tight security. But it was already too late, as Yuko, who had been sneaking along with the guard, managed to enter and was now in front of the storage box. While Zack, on the 9th floor of the basement of the prison island, is walking through the room with Roach and getting information, which there are 9 levels located according to the level of danger of the prisoners. Then Roach shows the intersection hole of the 8th floor and the 9th floor, which is certainly difficult to reach and many prisoners. The 8th floor is far above. Outside the island there's also a continent covered by magic, and prisoners of various levels in the prison will naturally form gangs to fight for their freedom. Then Zack snapped and asked if anyone here had the ability to fly. In response to that question, with a hearty laugh, Uncle Roach replied that even if they could fly, they would have a hard time fighting the phosphorus bats waiting for their prey in the air. In addition, there are many monsters that are much stronger than humans in this hell. Then Uncle Roach showed one example, and when Zack saw it, he suddenly fell silent because the figure was like a mutant eating a monster wolf alone. With a smile, Roach told Zack not to panic when the mutant wanted to attack them, because the mutant had been targeted by the tarantula, which was the top of the food chain here. The tarantula queen, which was 6 times the size of an ordinary monster, knew Roach's position. They immediately decided to leave at this time. Time seemed to go very fast, and they were currently lighting a campfire and eating to recharge. Feeling curious about the supplies that Uncle Roach had, Zack then asked about their origin, while cooking water. Uncle said that in this place there were still many edible species, and most importantly, the energy crystals of the prisoners upstairs who fell on this floor were valuable items for survival. Then Zack asked if the people they saw were mutants. Hearing that question, Roach seemed to not understand the meaning of the word mutant. But people like that Roach knew better as demon. Then Zack asked if the people they saw were mutants. Hearing that question, Roach didn't seem to understand the meaning of the word mutant, but people like that Roach knew better as demon. Long ago, the creatures of the land consisted of ancient dragons, elves, and humans among them under the command of the Holy Dragon King. The peaceful ancient times changed when one day the Black Dragon killed and swallowed his own father, the White Dragon King. After that, he became a black dragon that destroyed the world. In this world, swallowing blood is a very taboo thing. The rule was broken. Even the powerful dragons of the gods would not escape the backlash of the curse. Zack felt as if he had heard the story, then asked what it had to do with the demon mentioned earlier. Roach then said that if you want to survive here, there is only one way, and that is to prey on each other, and humans are also included in that. The prisoners here will eat anything to survive, and when talented people prey on each other, the human body will begin to collapse on a spiritual level, and human nature will gradually disappear. Then Zack was curious about what crimes Roach had committed to be imprisoned on this floor. With pride and his trademark smile, he replied that when he was young, he almost overturned all the rules in the Ministry of Magic. But that was the past. Then Roach approached Zack and said, "Now you and I are in the same situation. In this hell you don't want to spend your life here with me, right?" "Without a future," said Roach. "Of course, I still have very important things to do. But as you said, we can't get out at all in this place," Zack said. "What if I say that there is one more way that we can get out of this place? But you will lose your life if you fail. Now choose. Will you die here with me in despair, or try to find your freedom at the cost of your life?" he added. Yuko had already gotten Zack's belongings in the storage room. Fortunately, the arbitrator and grandfather had left the court. Otherwise, maybe Yuko couldn't get out of the place easily. Then Yuko opened the contents of the box and accidentally touched the sword until the object was active. Finally, with a quick response, Yuko immediately threw the sword before hurting it. Suddenly, the light blast startled her, so she reflexively jumped away. The figure turned out to be Lin, who had entered the destruction mode, holding a weapon and preparing for a desperate battle. Because she felt attracted by Zack's artificial intelligence plus his 100% winning presentation, Yuko felt offended and immediately attacked Lin behind her. Although for a while Lin did not find Yuko's existence, but when Yuko appeared to attack, Lin had prepared a laser shot that was able to repel Yuko. Even she didn't expect that Zack's artificial intelligence could touch such an incredible level of combat power, and it looks like Yuko will have to seriously deal with it. Then she brought out her shadow dance to make Lin's shield slowly crumble. Then Yuko's hard kick was able to knock Lin back until it caused a strong attack. Thinking that the fight was over, she was surprised by Lin, who had slid quickly towards her with a strong fist, until it was able to destroy the foothold around her. Finally, Yuko had reached her limit, and Lin was now pointing her weapon to threaten. Yuko said that she was familiar with Zack, as well as knew about Zack, who was currently imprisoned in the palace surrounded by guards from the Ministry of Magic. But if Zack had a very strong AI, Lin might be able to save him. Finally, Yuko ventured to invite Lin to cooperate. Back on the prison island where Zack was discussing escape routes with Roach, he still didn't believe that there was a way out other than through the hole above. Then Roach took the horses and suddenly destroyed the surrounding walls until a new path appeared wide open. That place turned out to be oil from the dungeon walls that were able to weaken magic over time. But their goal was not to go upstairs because there was already guarded by the Lionheart Knights, and near the water there was also the Royal Emperor of the Sea Troops. How to break into the prison from above is indeed impossible, but Roach said, "What if we do it from below?" Hearing that made Zack ask, "Is there a next floor that leads down?" Then Roach explained that for 20 years he had explored this entire hell in search of a way to escape, and in the deepest part of the hell, he found a large magic circle. His intuition told him that it was a barrier that led to another room. Outside the 9th floor prison, he called it the 10th chain. But just when Roach was finding out, he was almost dead, and the current scar was left as a result of the incident. But Roach only hurt that it was the only hope. Then Roach reassured him, would he like to go with him to the deepest part of the 9th floor, which is also the lair of the Tarantula of Death. In the floating city medical department, Maru's group had just arrived at the hospital and was immediately greeted by the medical minister, Agatha. She then said that the patient would not last long. Then Maru patted Agatha on the shoulder for working hard. But after they entered the room, the wounded soldier was already half in ashes. Then he tried to tell the incident in as much detail as possible. When they were on their way with the team, on a mission, suddenly a large whale appeared in the sea. All over his body had a dark and black color. The size is similar to the city, even bigger. His whole body radiates chaotic energy. Suddenly his whole team didn't even have time to fight in front of him and immediately disappeared into dust. In addition, he saw a mark on the monster's head, from which the elders concluded that the figure was very similar to one of the 5 largest monsters recorded in Chinese whale family literature. While in the 9th floor prison, where Uncle Roach was walking through the connecting room between the 9th floor and the underground portal, on his way, Zack asked if this was the nest of the death tarantula. Why hadn't they found any of these monsters? According to Uncle Roach, if it was like that, then we were among the lucky ones because the death tarantula had very sharp hearing. Coinciding with that, Zack accidentally stepped on a bone that was scattered on the road and his expression was immediately frightened. Then Roach asked Zack to stay still. Suddenly, he was entangled in a spider web until he was pulled up. Responding quickly to Zack's carelessness, Roach pulled him back by his chain and immediately prepared in the position of Birdahan. Then Roach asked Zack to stay still. Suddenly he was entangled in a spider web until he was pulled up. Responding quickly to Zack's carelessness, Roach pulled him back with his chain and immediately prepared in a defensive position. They are currently surrounded by 7 tarantula monsters that simultaneously close their way out. Then Roach ordered Zack to make a decision as quickly as possible or finish off the monster before they attracted more monsters. Roach immediately hit the monster in front of him with his fist, and then the uncle immediately deflected the poison that was directed at him with the spin of his chain until it hit the spider to death. Zack, who saw that, was so amazed that he forgot the 3 monsters behind him because he realized that, thanks to Roach's shout, Zack calmly released his energy and immediately made a quick shot that came from his shadow technique. Seeing this made Uncle Roach praise Zack's calmness for facing the tarantula of death for the first time. But the longer Zack was getting careless until he almost got cut by the tarantula, the praise immediately turned into advice for Zack not to unleash his extra abilities carelessly so as not to get too tired. Uncle said that the tarantula's shell was very hard, so Zack would be wasted if he didn't fight in a smart way. Not knowing what to do, he bluntly asked Uncle Roach. Instantly, Roach realized that Zack had never practiced his talent, and no one had ever taught him. Then Roach gave instructions that he better concentrate his power on one point to create maximum damage in an instant, and the monster's weak point lies in its stomach. Hearing the minimal direction from Uncle Roach, Zack finally understood and immediately tried it. After Zack released his power suddenly, an energy explosion emanated from Zack's direction, and he felt a sensation he had never felt, and his dark energy became lighter than before. Seeing Zack's progress made Uncle Roach have to be stunned because he was confused about whether to call Zack a genius or an idiot. Although no one taught him to use his powers, with a little guidance, he was able to awaken his deepest abilities little by little. Then Roach made a statement that whether the people in Sparrow Country were all monsters. When he finished dealing with the 7 tarantula monsters that surrounded him earlier, they immediately ran away because the commotion would surely invite many other tarantulas. Then Uncle Roach directed his way as if he was familiar with this place. Answering the question while running, Uncle Roach told proudly that his activities over the years were to explore this cave many times, until shortly after they ran, they finally arrived at the portal to the 10th level that Uncle Roach had told him. But when Zack wanted to get down there, they were already greeted by the Queen of Death tarantula that was 5 times their size. But Uncle Roach felt that the monster was stronger than 10 years ago. Then, Uncle Roach told Zack that the Spider Queen was completely different from the tarantula they had just encountered. The spider web was no longer a thick liquid that restricted movement, but was already as strong and sharp as steel wire. This monster can also release a very strong toxin that can cause hallucinations. The initial effect is only slow, but in the end it will sink into the illusion created by the toxin and fall into madness. Then behind its large size, there is a dense poison bag whose poison presentation is stronger than ordinary poison. Then the most difficult thing to deal with from this monster is its 10 eyes that have 360-degree vision without blind spots, and nothing can escape its sight. The scars of its attacks that are caused even until now. Then Zack asked if this Spider Queen could not be defeated at all. Then Uncle Raz told the possibility if defeating it alone was impossible, but now at the headquarters of the Ministry of Magic, it was shown that the Supreme Council was holding a meeting to discuss the emergency situation that occurred 30 miles at sea level from the city. The group had attacked the executive of the Ministry of Magic with an artificial ancient monster that led to the entire army of the 3rd Unit of the Executive Department. The report was directly delivered by Father F., who is the first child of the Scarlet family. Then the Intelligence Department also added that there is still an element of magic. There's also the leader of the Whale Kingdom. He believes that the monster is very similar to the meteor whale that has been sealed by his client. Then the Lion Kingdom named argues that if it is true that the enemy created the ancient beast, then we should mobilize all the elite troops to guard the royal capital. Even the military minister of the Lion Kingdom, Charles, will be on standby to gather in the city to wait for the next instructions. There are also reinforcements that have been prepared by various kingdoms from the Eagle led by Princess Angela, as well as the High Priest of the Eagle Kingdom's Combat Corps troops. Since everything is already here and is prepared for a bad situation, they finally started the SS-level strategic deployment mission to defeat the enemy. The 3rd son of the Scarlet family, Rectangle Scarlet, tried to explain the mission this time, where he showed a map where there was a location where the first artificial monster appeared about 400 miles from the island. In addition, it is possible that the enemy also made copies of other monsters. Currently, they do not know their true intentions, but according to custom, their dragon descendants will definitely do something in the near future on the border of the Whale Kingdom. The Magic Machine Box is the most important fortress connected to the sea observation area, and it is the easiest place to target. Then Maru firmly said that no matter which of the 4 places would be attacked, he would not allow it. Maru wants everyone here to be stationed in 4 different cities to strengthen the defense, as well as build a large-scale transportation circle that can be sent to the floating city in both directions. Then Maru gave the order to lead the Emperor's Sea Guard, return to the Whale Kingdom, and distribute troops to the border waters to form the line. While Buxton and Charles will lead the troops to the Machine City, because it seems that the place will be targeted. Then Maru gave the order to lead the Emperor's Sea Guards back to the Whale Kingdom and distribute the troops to the border waters to form a line. While Buxton and Charles would lead the troops to the Engine City, as it seemed that place would be the main target of the enemy. The Princess and the High Priest would protect the Magic Academy City, as well as guard the Energy Crystal City and protect the Scarlet residents. The floating city would be guarded by Maru Scarlet alone. However, the old grandfather would not let anyone destroy the peace under the Ministry of Magic. In front of the barrier formation, in the hellish prison that revealed the Tarantula Queen jumped up to attack Roach and Zack simultaneously. But they both anticipated that, and jumped away before hitting them. Then, the spider noose shot almost hit Zack, but Roach managed to deflect the attack. With his extraordinary attack method and wide viewpoint, it was impossible to defeat her single-handedly with one direction. But if 2 people attacked back and forth, they could have a chance to create a blind spot, and one hit would kill her. He felt excited. Finally, they both attacked together. Zack immediately changed to his latest transformation mode and disappeared in the opposite direction of Roach. The sensation made Roach pound again as if attracted by Zack's abilities that made him jealous. Finally, Zack easily got behind the monster and immediately shot it with a falling star strike to make a large enough explosion. But when the smoke slowly faded, the counterattack of the Tarantula Queen was ready to be deployed, and with quick reflexes, Roach managed to pull Zack from above, who almost became bones because of the new poison sac. But when the haze slowly faded, the counterattack of the Tarantula Queen was ready to be deployed, and with quick reflexes, Roach managed to pull Zack from above, who was almost reduced to bones because of the poison sac that had just been spewed. It seems that separating into 2 groups is not as simple as reality. Then Roach asked Zack to buy time for him by dealing alone with the monster. Showing an unexpected expression, Zack agreed and asked Uncle Roach not to worry about it. Then he asked for the crystal energies that Uncle Roach had shown. They had a clever way to hold it. Then Zack darted towards the Tarantula Queen and avoided one by one the attacks shown to him. Even Zack turned it quickly to ignore the monster's concentration. But one objective attack from the Tarantula managed to hold Zack back until he was temporarily knocked back, although the attack was successful. But if it still attacked him blindly, he still wouldn't last long. Moreover, Uncle Roach was gathering his energy with high concentration. Because there was no other choice, Zack would be desperate to get closer to the monster so that Uncle Roach could concentrate properly. Then Zack darted quickly in a zigzag manner from the walls that even made Uncle Roach worry. But Zack's efforts finally paid off. When he was in front of the monster, Zack turned the ice crystals into shards of glass that made the monster's view become chaotic. Although one by one the glass shards were successfully destroyed, Uncle Roach's time was over and immediately told Zack to move away as quickly as possible from there. Suddenly, a powerful energy shot from Roach managed to blind the monster's view, and enclosing Zack with his web shadows, managed to split several parts of the monster until it fell. Finally, they have managed to defeat the monster. But the fun was only temporary. It seemed that the scenery was exhausted, and at this time he was so exhausted that he was supported by Zack when walking. After walking through hundreds of tarantula eggs, they finally arrived at the portal to the 10th floor. But just before they entered the portal, the queen tarantula monster rose again, but with faster reflexes than Zack. Roach managed to push Zack in front of the portal and took the monster's attack until it pierced his back. Before Zack teleported, Roach said his last message that he would catch up with him soon, despite the appearance of his mouth full of blood and spider legs that pierced his chest. The Ministry of Magic that revealed Falcon Scarlet was upset with his father's behavior for not including him in a large-scale mission this time. Then one of his troops entered his room without permission, because he reported an urgent situation regarding an artificial intelligence device that was making trouble in front of the South Transmission Tower and had injured most of the troops there. Because Falcon's mood was already chaotic, he was getting annoyed and immediately wanted to meet the troublemaker to teach him. Even when leaving his room, Falcon seemed unaware of Yuko's existence, who was also in his room. Her task of sneaking in there was to find the key to the portal connecting the city to the prison. While Lin, who distracted all the guards there, including Falcon Scarlet here, switched not far from Falcon Scarlet's room, where Lin is currently making trouble in the tower of the Southern Division of the Ministry of Magic. But when Falcon had gone down to see the state of his troops, it seemed that all the guards there had been paralyzed, and even his special forces, who looked strong, were taken down easily. Increasingly looking annoyed, Falcon in his high tone asked Lin, "Who is the figure who sent her here?" But because Lin's nature is very similar to Zack, for a while she ignored Falcon's questions while contacting with strange codes. "A strawberry-haired monster has appeared. Please answer if you receive it," said Lin. "Permission to open the top portal is obtained. I will open it first while you find a way to escape from there. Give me 10 minutes to solve the problem here. Report over." Because the mission had missed the plan, Lin could not help but hold Falcon for 10 minutes while observing his strength, which turned out to be unknown. But just before Lin's overall analysis was completed, Falcon with his anger immediately drew his sword, and a golden aura suddenly emanated from his body. Zack, who had reached the 10th floor, saw the silhouettes of animals talking about him, and he immediately screamed when he woke up and panicked by himself. But after a few seconds, Zack remembered Uncle Roach and started worrying about him. Then Zack was surprised by the silhouettes he first saw, which turned out to be 4 strange animals that could talk. Not accepting Zack's words, a dog then replied that Zack was also not like normal humans in general, but finally they fought to determine who was normal. But when a soft voice called the names of the animals, his quarrel with Zack seemed to disappear, and when Zack turned his head towards the source of the voice, an elf figure appeared. It is known that the 10th floor is the forest of Gensokyo, which is all this is a magic circle that looks like a beautiful outside world. It is even said that this region has long disappeared from. But at the moment, Zack's mind was only filled with worries about Uncle Roach's condition. But on his way to follow the elf, the little girl politely introduced herself, who was known to be named Uzair, to which Zack replied, "Call me Zack." Suddenly someone got off his deer and sniffed Zack, because she was the first time seeing humans who entered this dimension. Actually, Zack didn't know much about this place. This world was made to be the home of various types of animals that seemed unfamiliar to Zack. Even when he called the wrong animal there, they could be insinuated. Being very curious about Zilo's life, Zack then asked, "Who is the sister fighter figure she mentioned earlier, and where are your parents at this time?" Then cheerfully Zilo answered that she had never met her mother and father, but the sister father said that her parents were great elves. The sister father is the one who raised her alone here. She's a very beautiful elf figure. Sharp nose, big eyes, long silver hair, but she often has nightmares in every sleep. But all that can't change her love. Hearing this while imagining the figure of father, Zack began to fantasize about her, and the figure depicted in his brain was very terrible and ugly. Then Zello checked Zack to meet with the sister who was always in the holy temple, who might be able to help Zack get out of here. While walking towards the guild, he asked Zack, "Is she also a talent like him who has powers?" Then Zack proudly showed his element, which made Zello look happy. But in the temple, it appeared that the figure of the sister father who was sleeping there suddenly woke up and detected an intruder was there. After that, the weather there turned into a storm and heavy rain, which made them immediately run towards the holy temple to see the sister who might have a nightmare. But after finishing there, she was then trapped by a magic barrier that dragged her into the temple. But when Zack ran to try to reach her, a strong magic circle immediately bound him. Even the magic could not be released with the power of dark energy he had. Then the figure of the sister father revealed her form, which was more beautiful than Zack's imagined. She then said, "You better stop before the power swallows you up." Finally, she released her power and tried to believe because the situation was getting more conducive. The tightening magic also disappeared, and the weather cleared up again. Then she told Zilo to play alone because she had some business with Zack. She immediately told Zack to come with her. She yelled at Zack that he better be careful because the fighter was very strong. When they got to the guild, Zack then said, "Don't let the soul wait too long." But she was just silent, and then cast holy magic, which immediately entered Zack's mind. Then shone a childhood that had just awakened the power of energy and showed it to his mother. Every time he showed it, his mother immediately scolded him and spanked his ass so as not to use it in front of others in the future. Finally, Zack, since childhood, was curious about the 5 heroes who saved the world, and only 4 families were published. But his curiosity had to be suppressed until the death of his mother. At the end of her life, his mother said not to use his powers in front of others, because there were many things that could not be told to her son. For that his mother told Zack to go to the Sparrow Kingdom and find his own truth there and give the family necklace as his last legacy. Zack had to end the moment until he woke up and was greeted by the waiter who was already in front of him. Then Zack asked who the elf really was. Then the elf said that she was the messenger. Zack, who heard that, was even more curious about her. Even her memory magic was stronger than the previous chief judge of the arbitration department. Then slowly approached him and told him that she had been imprisoned for years by humans. Zack was the first to successfully enter his Gensokyo. Then he praised that Zack's memories were quite difficult to dig up. But she knew very well that Zack was a descendant of sparrows. Hearing that made Zack surprised and speechless, and as if living in a bygone era, could only reminisce when knowing the descendants of the Sparrow Kingdom in his memory. Then he began to tell the story of the real 5 heroes, where when the 5 former heroes had killed the 5 Dragon King incarnations, they then ate the dragon blood water crystal and obtained stable magic power, which was said to be the origin of the ability of human talent. Led by the spirit of the past, the mainland has entered a prosperous era of peace, where humans coexist peacefully. The magic power and technology in the motherland have gradually recovered. But the good times did not last long. In the 6th generation, under the leadership of the 5 great families, a demonized phenomenon gradually emerged among the talented people. It turns out that in addition to the powerful magic energy, the dragon blood crystal also has the curse of the black dragon, so the Sparrow Kingdom wants to make this issue heard in all corners of the world and establish a management mechanism that restricts the ability of talented people. But this good proposal was strongly opposed by the other 4 clans, because once the issue is exposed, it will greatly affect the dominance of the 5 clans in the mainland. In the end, the 4 major families joined forces with the talented people to launch the project to slaughter the souls of those who would not compromise, and the project was the end of the Sparrow clan. Zack had long suspected that if one of the great heroes in history was missing, he might be the descendant of the family that would fight against the four major families. Therefore, he pretended to be stupid and crazy to deliberately enter Scarlet's house and show his family necklace and show his abilities. He even pretended to be desperate when he was caught by the Ministry of Magic and received his sentence. Zack thought that if he didn't enter the tiger's lair, no one would know that by exposing himself, he would be able to get close to the truth quickly. Then he asked Zack, "Isn't he afraid that they will sentence you to death?" But with a stern expression, he replied that he was actually afraid, but he chose to fight to the death because there was no one to worry about anymore. Zack had previously thought that he would meet the people of the Sparrow Kingdom in this dungeon, but after knowing all the truth, he asked what he would do next. With a fearless expression, Zack replied that he would take revenge. He heard that smiling because his thinking had been right. The descendants of the Sparrows were smart, adventurous people and good at disguise. Maybe Zack was a person worth trusting. Suddenly he kissed Zack, and then the magic light overflowed along with the kiss. At the Southern Division's Ministry of Magic, the teleportation tower there was showing Falcon and Lin, who were about to fight. Lin, who was still observing Falcon's mana increase, suddenly did not expect that the man was already in front of him, and quickly slashed at Lin, who was transfixed, but fortunately Lin's defenses managed to activate before the incision touched him. From the results of the analysis, Falcon's combat level is very dangerous, and Lin must be aware of his agile movements. Then Lin tried to shoot Falcon with his Shoot of Destruction, but it still looked slow, so the attack Falcon blocked. It is known that Falcon has a critical fashion ability where as long as the target is still in his sight, he can see through the next move the target will make. Even though he didn't believe Falcon's words, Lin was suddenly surprised by Falcon's fast movement. Fortunately, Lin was once again able to survive the onslaught. But the moment did not last long, because Lin's cell was slowly destroyed, and finally the attacks from both sides clashed, which caused a large-scale explosion. When the smoke slowly dissipated, it showed Lin almost helpless, and his cell core had been destroyed. Then Falcon recognized that Lin was completely beyond his expectation, that could even hurt his face. With the right initiative decision between attack and defense, then Falcon approached Lin and gave him a chance. No matter who was behind him, he wanted to make Lin his own. He heard that Lin immediately fired a laser beam that made Falcon step back from him. Feeling his chance was flatly rejected by Lin, Falcon immediately ran to end his fight with Lin. But when Falcon's analysis reached absolute victory, Lin finally released the magic key that had held his strength all this time, and instantly a powerful energy burst emanated from Falcon until he delayed his attacks. The transformation was active, and Lin looked more purple. With excessive emotion, Falcon finally attacked Lin recklessly, causing his sword to be taken and destroyed easily by Lin. And in closing, Lin issued a large enough attack and delivered it to Falcon until the connecting bridge was destroyed by a hole. As a farewell, Lin said that he now had a master. Everything in Lin already belonged to Master Zack alone. Yuko, who saw the explosion from afar, immediately contacted Lin and asked him to leave immediately. She didn't expect that the best fighter of the Scarlet family was defeated, and now she has more on her mind because she has been involved in a big problem. Yuko immediately told Lin that the portal in front of her was currently leading to the nearest port on the prison island, and if she passed through the portal, Yuko told Lin to be careful in the future. Then ridiculously, Lin replied that if there were guards there, just kill them. Yuko was getting scared because she didn't want another riot later. Finally, the two of them entered the portal. Zack, who got the kiss, could only say, "What are you doing?" but with his red face blushing. Then he told an additional story about the reason why the Sparrow clan was exterminated at that time. On the night of the Project Massacre, an unexpected figure appeared in the sky. Because of witnessing the massacre of his clan members, the sixth generation of the Sparrow clan turned into a dragon. At that moment, he radiated the same dark aura as the Dragon of Destruction. Then at the same time, the figure swept everyone he saw, even including his own clan members. For that, the four chiefs there joined forces to fight against the dragon. At that moment, he radiated the same dark aura as the Dragon of Destruction. Then, at the same time, the figure swept away everyone he saw, even including his own people from his clan. To that end, the 4 chiefs there joined forces and fought him for 3 days and nights before finally defeating him. The battle almost reduced the entire Sparrow clan to ashes within a few days. Although it was all provoked by the 4 great families, the war itself was a great tragedy. Then he also said that the power of darkness within him was an innate ability that was closest to the origin of dragons. Then Zack asked to reassure himself, will he become like that in the future? With a straightforward answer, he said yes. When he uses his power again and again, the darkness will erode slowly until he controls you completely. But now if Zack feels his anger about to peak, the holy power of the Dragon King will hold him back. Since ancient times, the elves have been inherited from the bloodline as a bridge between dragons and humans. Their task is to convey the wishes of the sacred dragon and cultivate the entire continent in peace. They play a key role, but it is this battle that brings destruction to the elven race. The dragon's curse first appeared on the elven race, and the entire clan began to become like demons. At the most critical moment, her ancestor Queen Elvina sacrificed herself and released her light power to save her descendants. The holder of the holy power so that it can survive until now, but she has given the rest of her power. This place was also created by the power of the holy dragon in order to protect them. After its power has been given to Zack, it will automatically disappear, and sure enough, the roof of the temple there is slowly breaking. At the harbor, Yuko and Lin had just passed through the teleportation portal, but it was quiet and there was no sign of humans. Then when they wanted to try to find out what the cause was, a crowd of people ran away from the edge of the city, and when Yuko tried to see what the cause was, the Brotherhood army had appeared off the sea. But suddenly she felt a bad feeling that her master was currently in danger. Then she immediately flew to the prison island. In the floating city, it was shown that the residents there were being evacuated. The entire city was currently under martial law, and just below the city, Maru Scarlet and several troops were ready to attack the enemy troops at the battle center. Meanwhile, the other officials will arrive in about an hour. Maru inquired about the monster she was about to face at the moment. According to the old grandfather with glasses, she could only conclude that although they had the same appearance, the power of the original meteor whale could destroy the entire continent. Its power is only controlled by the element of chaos, plus one of the 4 evil stars. The descendant of the dragon is on it, and he looks very small. Then with a firm direction, Maru ordered her troops to destroy the enemy mercilessly, and after that order, her troops jumped from above and flocked to attack the rebel. The Imperial Guards and the Department of Magic troops also moved to flank from the backside, and the arbitration team provided magic support from a distance. Finally, the bloodshed at sea was inevitable, and many troops of both sides there had died. Even the whale monster's attack could destroy a quarter of the surrounding sea warriors. The purpose of being here was not to participate in the battle, but there was something hidden behind this battle. Therefore, Pope No. 3 was ordered to go at full speed to quickly reach the destination. On the 10th floor of the dungeon, Fade is imprisoned. She even looks like her body has been filled with curses that spread all over her body. Back to the battle between the Ministry of Magic and the enemy forces on the high seas. Until now, the officials there still haven't intervened. But when the whale monster began to show rapid movement, the elite soldiers were sent down to stop the monster. Even though they tried to stop the monster with Zero's combo skill, the monster was unstoppable, and with Set Timer's command, the monster released strong energy that made the Ministry of Magic officials mistaken and forced them to make protection magic around the city. But it turns out that the Timer's destination is the prison island. Finally, Maru remembered that there was still one of the whale monsters around the city, but it turned out that the Timer's destination was the prison island. Finally, Maru remembered that there was still one of the 4 stars who had been imprisoned on the 9th floor, and that figure was Roach, who casually listened to the commotion from outside while eating meat. In the 10th floor dungeon of the elves who were eroded by the dragon's curse, where he had been imprisoned in the 10th floor dungeon, and he didn't know it had been several years. His only goal was to survive, but that wasn't a long-term solution. So he used the years to pass through the magic circle from the 9th floor to here. He hoped that one day there would be someone who was destined to meet him, and that person was Zack. Every time he was plagued by the Black Dragon's curse, he would have nightmares, and he was afraid that he would lose control and hurt Zelo, who was the last blood of the elves. But now, her task was complete, and she handed over her last task to Zack to protect her descendants. The task was in exchange for giving Zack the power of light. With a stern expression, Zack accepted the task. Because there was little time left, she immediately made a portal to get Zack out of this prison, before his body became a demon. But before trying to help him, she had already activated her magic, and as a final farewell, the beautiful elf smiled at Zack with tears on her cheeks, and an apology in her heart for wanting to hug him since many years ago. It can be seen that the troops of the Ministry of Magic are very cornered. In order not to cause many casualties, this one grandfather will step in to confront the whale monster while taking off half of his clothes, which shows a muscular body. With his water magic, the bespectacled grandfather can confidently fight the monster, because if the fight is in the sea, he is the king. After jumping and falling in the water, a vortex around him suddenly turned into dozens of dragon heads, and without hesitation attacked the whale monster. Responding to the old grandfather's attack, the enemy inevitably revealed his identity. With one slash, the attack was successfully destroyed. It is known that the figure is named Lillian, one of the demons, as if she was familiar with the Lord who was the chief arbiter during his tenure, then asked Lillian, why did she dare to attack the Ministry of Magic with such little preparation? With a charming pose, Lillian only revealed that her mission was not to oppose the Ministry of Magic, but her duty was only to hold them here to carry out her mission. Lillian left from here, while she would hold back alone. Lillian admits that when the elf was young, he was invincible, but now his golden age has passed, and she is ready to challenge him again. Then the clash between the two ensued, and the whale monster remained in his mission to call Roach in prison. Maru, who realized this, immediately chased the monster and would not let Roach see the sun again. But when the monster was speeding on the seabed quickly, he accidentally met Zack, who had just teleported out of prison. Unexpectedly, the whale bounced up, making everyone there silent in surprise. Zack finally appeared on the surface of the sea with his second type of transformation. Then with a huge energy jump, Zack immediately darted towards Maru and kicked him hard. Although his kick had energy that made the troops from the Ministry of Magic bounce, but in contrast to Maru, who was only slightly scratched in his fist, Zack finally realized that now was not the right time to deal with them. Then Zack said, "Whatever you have done to the Sparrow clan, whether it's from the Big Four family and the Ministry of Magic, someday I will make you pay for everything with your blood." With a heavy sigh, Maru will regret having been gentle with Lilith, and for this time he will really kill her with his signature wind magic technique. Maru then slammed the energy ball at Zack's, but with Absolute King's shield, the attack did not manage to scratch a single hair of his master. Lin turned out to have arrived before Scarlet's attack was thrown. Then Lin confidently invited Zack to fight the grandfather. But Zack refused the invitation, and preferred to run away from here first. He obeyed his master's orders. Lin immediately darted to bring Zack away from the battlefield. But when Maru wanted to chase him, he was first distracted by the monster whale that hit the side of the prison until it was destroyed. Seeing that his job was done, he also withdrew from the battle. But reinforcements for the Ministry of Magic finally arrived, and with their combined attacks, Monster Whale number 3 was successfully brought down. Then Maru ordered all his members to destroy all enemies seen in this sea and would not let anyone escape. Detecting that there were hundreds of people in front of him, with evil energy, then Zack left to Lin and tried to talk to the people who were on the submarine in front of him. It turned out that they were enemy troops who nosily wanted to finish off Zack. But when the two people wanted to attack him, Lillian stopped them and allowed Zack to escape this time, even though meeting with one of the Sparrow clans was a rare thing. But the order came from someone stronger than him. A burly figure with long white hair. Even he told the choice that the boy was just pretending, strange and weak. Yet he dared to counterattack the Ministry of Magic, and almost deceived him. But now the Sparrow's blood was still there, and they could already start the plan. While wearing his black suit, the man spoke, "The seeds of hatred have been planted. Let us begin."